Wilson! Brian! Wilson! 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 Wilson!
It's okay, Tom. I'm here. He seems really broken up. Tom, no, it's fine. Really, it's going to be okay.
Talk to the man,
welcome.
please, Wilson.
That's right. Well, I'm just feeling goofy today because it's a Friday. It is a flip-flop Friday for me. But again, most days are flip-flop Fridays this time of year.
I had my suspicions.
That's right. Not to overshare, but I mean, it's a getaway Friday. Time for everybody to sort of, get up and get out of town if you're going to take that last Labor Day trip down to the beach or wherever. Maybe you're going to the mountains or the beach, doesn't matter. But people are going to be on the road, so this is a getaway Friday. It's also the day that we do not one but two rounds of Phone Your Farb Friday, which is, honestly, I think it's my favorite part of the week because you never know what you're going to get. Let's just be honest about it, Chris. I think you probably would agree with me here. I'm a bit of a control freak.
I hadn't noticed.
You hadn't noticed that.
No, it had
honestly
never occurred
and
to
so
me.
when I open up the phones, I just don't want anything. I want to talk about one topic. And then it occurs to me that, I might be missing out. So the one time a week where anything goes is Phone Your Farb Friday. You can call in and you can, within boundaries because it is a family show. The other day, a guy just called up and just started dropping S-bombs, not the F-bomb, but the S-bomb.
Yes, he did.
And we had to take action against him. He's on super secret probation. He just doesn't even know it.
That's how secret it is.
That's how secret it is. And so, but it's the opportunity for you to say, whatever's on your mind. If there's something going on in the news, you think we're missing it, and you think, wow, we got to talk about that. Well, then, that's what Phone Your Farb Friday for. Well, it used to be called Free for All Friday. Let's just be calling us to understand what happened here. It was called Free for All Friday.
Yeah.
When I was on mornings. And then, I thought, well, I'll just bring that to afternoons when I made the move and made the move to afternoons. And then I found out that Dan had kept Free for All Friday. And he never asked.
Never.
It was a proprietary part of my show, honestly, I think. And he never asked. He just took it.
It's a good idea, Brian.
I mean, yeah, it's a good idea. And I guess, the idea is, well, you just steal a good idea. So then we had to come up with something, different. And the thing we came up with was Phone Your Farb Friday.
That's pretty good, too. I actually kind of like that.
And
I
I
like the
actually came
alliteration.
from a listener, if I recall. We were saying, what should we call this? And so I think somebody suggested it on the phone line. So, that's how seriously we take these phone calls from folks when they call in. All right. So anyway, I hope you do. If you're on the road, be careful out there. If you're trying to get away a little early, maybe you're heading down to the beach, maybe you're headed out to the mountains, whatever it is. I want you to drive carefully because I have a feeling traffic's going to be a little, a lot of people are traveling these days.
Yep.
It was like for a long, long time we didn't travel. And then it's taken a while for it to come back all the way, but now people are traveling again in huge numbers. So be careful out there, all right? Two stories about COVID-19. Well, or whatever the latest variant is. I can't keep up with all of it. But this story came from Newsmax. I found it interesting. Scientists at Pentagon Medical Intelligence Unit wrote in a research report that evidence indicates the SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 may have been developed in a laboratory, this according to the Washington Times. Scientists from the Defense Intelligence Agency's National Center for Medical Intelligence determined in an unclassified research paper published in 2020 and recently uncovered by The Australian that COVID-19 was engineered. The report also rebuffed a previous research paper written by Christian G. Anderson and 4 other scientists, which concluded that SARS-CoV-2 is not a laboratory construct or a purposeful manipulated virus. The NCMI report, written by Robert Gregg Cutlip and Navy Commander Jean-Paul Chrétien, states, we consider the evidence they present and find that it does not prove that the virus rose naturally. In fact, the features of SARS-CoV-2 are consistent with another scenario, that SARS-CoV-2 was developed in a laboratory by methods that leading coronavirus researchers commonly use to investigate how the viruses infect cells and cause disease, assess the potential for animal coronaviruses to jump to humans, and develop drugs and vaccines. So, in other words, this happened in a lab. Now, and we all know that. I mean, honestly, what are the chances that it wasn't created in the lab? It comes from Wuhan, the city in China that has the only lab, I think, in China that does this kind of research. And they tried to blame it on a nearby market, but I mean, honestly, maybe it did go through that market, but it came from that lab. It's what it seems to me, and almost anybody else who has a brain cell working, except of course for Anthony Fauci, who always wants you to know that
I represent science.
He represents science, and if he has a different opinion of all that, well, then you can't challenge him because
I represent science.
He represents science. And then there's this. Okay, so that was back then. Now, again, please do not turn off the radio because I think this bit of information irritates a lot of people, but let's go beyond it, okay? New Yorkers are being told to mask up for Labor Day as a new COVID variant sparks super spread fears. Here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. Cue up the Who, because I'm telling you, we won't be fooled again. With summer coming to an end and a new COVID variant on the loose, some health experts are recommending people might start taking precautions again with mask wearing. There is a potential for a major spike in COVID cases following Labor Day weekend when socializing will be at its peak, people going to parties, parades, and celebrations. And so at the New York City Department of Health, they are saying, listen, you need to get back into the mask. The mask will protect you. Well, okay. As we discussed here the other day on this program, I don't think that we're going to go back and do this thing like we did it before. Honestly, I think people, never really thought the mask did all that much. The only reason I ever wore a mask was really just to put other people at ease because it wasn't worth it. I never really had any fear about going into a place without a mask. A lot of people had a different view of it. And of course, there are people out there who perhaps do need to wear masks because they have a suppressed immune system or something like that. Listen, it was ugly. Don't get me wrong. There were people who died. But I have a feeling that this time around, if they try to pull this same stuff that they tried to pull before, with the big shutdowns of business and telling people that they can't go to restaurants and telling people they can't go out to bars or they can't socialize, or if you have a family over for Thanksgiving, everybody has to wear a mask. I think we just gotten to the point where a lot of people are saying, no, we're not going to be doing some of those things again. But here we go again. And isn't it interesting, the timing on all this? We're heading what? We're heading into the real political season, aren't we? After Labor Day, things really start getting heated up. And it pushes hard in the presidential election cycle until, we get to Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, and Super Tuesday. And so, is this going to be like it is? I mean, and if the Biden administration, which seems to be, do you think there's a degree of separation between the Biden administration and the New York Health Department? I don't think there's likely to be any division there. So what are you going to do if they pick up the phone and they say, or they put out the press release, you've got to mask up? I think we all have to sort of think through how we're going to react this time. The things that we are going to do and the things we aren't going to do. They're going to come up with a new vaccine for the variant, and then they're going to suggest that you get one. I would say it's their job to create the vaccine, but that's where their job ends. If you want to take it, you take it. If you don't want to take it, you don't. But we're not going to have any more of these mandates. I mean, I honestly, we're just not going to, I don't think that the Americans are going to stand by and allow what happened before to happen this time again. And most importantly, everybody said, well, think about the children. Let's think about the children. We've got an entire generation of kids who are going through school who really are not where they need to be educationally. Part of that is because I think they're spending a lot of time doing things that don't have anything to do with real education, and that there is a woke agenda at play at times in some of our school systems. But beyond that, we found out that remote learning, there was a pretty remote chance you were going to learn anything. I like that. I'll use that again. But there really was. I mean, a very remote chance you were going to learn anything. It didn't work. It was horrible. For young minds to not be in a classroom, it was really that they're so far behind that literally that you're just going to have to, when you get, as they get a little older, you're just going to have to send them through anyway because, they're never going to catch up on the things they lost. This is especially true when it comes to mathematics. We need people who can do math because the rest of the world are people like me who can't do math. We need you to do math. But, the thing about math is it's foundational. You learn this, and then on top of that, then comes this new thing. And then on top of that, it's like building a brick wall. You got to have a good solid foundation. Every layer has to be there. One layer leads to the next. And if you get lost somewhere in there, you're never going to catch up. No matter how hard you try, you are just lost. Like a little lost puppy in the woods. You don't know anything about math, and it's really a shame. So two things to think about as we go forward here is, number one, let's just disabuse anybody of any notion other than it seems almost impossible that this virus did not start in a lab. I mean, did not start in the animal world, but did start in a lab. We know that. I mean, everybody can agree on that, right? It started in the lab. It's just ridiculous to try to stretch any other logic out of that. And I think the other thing we have to think about as we go forward here is, look, there are going to be people out there telling you you need to do this and you need to do that. And there may even get to a point where there are mandates. And we have to decide, because although they think that they are in charge, they're really not in charge. We're ultimately in charge, and we ultimately should be in charge of our own destiny. So we need to be ready to decide just how far our defiance may have to be pushed, and how much of this we're willing to comply with and how much we're not willing to comply with. Because as we go forward, I mean, you can see it on the horizon. You know that it's coming. Already they're starting to lay out the markers, talking about this, that, and the other. And here you have the New York Health Department saying that you need to mask up for Labor Day. It's pretty predictable, isn't it? All right. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
taking a look at the Hawaii wildfires and people unfortunately trying to take advantage of a very tragic situation there. An Ohio pregnant woman killed, administrative charges there, and a Medal of Honor right here in Tennessee. That and more 3:30 Super Talk, then at 9/7 WTN.
Well, there's a story out there about Maui now that you mention it. And by the way, I can't see you today, Mac Morris.
Oh, shoot. Did I not do the...
You haven't, are you being shy?
You missed my pretty face. That's all it is.
It maybe, I thought maybe you had an outbreak or something you want to share with the rest. That's fine.
Outbreak.
I don't know. I'm the only one around here that gets outbreaks. There you are. Well, I can see you now at least. This thing in Maui, boy, I'm telling you, when the entire story is told, I am afraid that it's going to become a lot more tragic than you and I understand right now. And I share with you a story from Breitbart, and if this is accurate, we're in for a tremendous amount of sad news here. Maui search crews have allegedly found over 450 bodies, according to a local resident who is leading a grassroots efforts to aid victims of the fire that decimated, and again, that's not the right word, the use of that word, but it destroyed the town of Lahaina. I can guarantee you right now, from what has been seen, the number of the people who have died is over 450, and it's going to be close to 1,000. Maui resident Dale Hermo Fernandez, who has close contacts inside local recovery efforts, said in a recent interview with Breitbart News. They're not giving the number, and this is the way it often works, and that's why sometimes it's really hard to understand how big or how bad a situation is. They're not giving out a number or adding the number to the death toll until they toe tag them and then identify them, and those are two things in fire victims that are incredibly difficult to do. Takes time. Usually it's dental records or something like that. It's guaranteed in the 400s. More than likely, it's going to get to 850 or 900 people, he says, with about 40% of them being kids. Oh, my gosh. He said he did not want to discuss the children too much out of respect for parents that are holding out hope. But what I'm telling you right now is there's a lot of kids. There's a lot. There's so much in the thing right now. The disaster hasn't happened to its fullest. In other words, we see that the town was destroyed by fire. We know that, and we know that it's bad, but we don't really have a sense of how bad it is because the official policy is that we're not going to add the number to the death toll until we have a positive ID. I think they need to come out and give people some sense of it. The kids is the saddest part about all this because the truth is I've been in Lahaina. There's no hope. I've seen kids in there, and there's not much hope. A lot of kids were home because the school got called out. The school got called out because there was, no excuse me. I am so sorry. I'm having a little struggle with the allergies today. You know what I need? I need me another cough drop. Let's see if that'll help things. I apologize, folks. This is something that happens to me about once or twice a year. All right. Let's see if I can make this work. The kids were out because the school got called out because they had a lack of electricity. That was the problem. And so they sent them home. And then the fires began. And then there was no way to know, parents were at work, the children were at home, and the children were left on their own and were trying to figure out what to do as the fire came roaring through. I mean, it's really a tragic thing. So right now, the number seems to be somewhere around, if this is correct, 400. This source, who is not an official source, but someone who is, I think, probably telling us the truth, trying to brace us for what is to come, has connections within the recovery effort and has been in there and has seen with his own eyes, what's going on. So we're not getting all of the information that we should be getting from the residents, from the officials there in Maui. And if they've already collected somewhere around 450 bodies, then we're already talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe as many as 500-600 people, and there he's saying it's probably going to go to 800 or 900. We have also heard that, according to FBI notes, that there was about a possibility of the number going as high as 1,100. We're really, I think we really are not quite aware of just how tragic this already tragic situation really is. It's 30 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
It is 3:30. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 90 degrees and the holiday weekend looking like some good weather, sunny skies, traffic, and our weekend weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. A warning today from the country's most populated state for those who want to give money for the wildfire relief efforts on Maui. Alex Stone with details and some tips to protect yourself.
California's Attorney General is out with a warning that criminals are using the Maui wildfires to steal money through fake charities and online crowdfunding. The AG says some attempts to raise money are even well-intentioned, but online crowdfunding pages that are formed quickly may lack the experience or staff needed to appropriately deal with the funds that come in. Before donating any money for the wildfire relief, the state says check the registration status to make sure it's a real charity. Give to known organizations you trust. Don't trust or be pressured by telemarketers who contact you, and understand the difference between tax-exempt and tax-deductible.
And in Ohio, police body camera footage has been released that shows the final moments of a pregnant black woman's life. 21-year-old Takia Young was shot and killed in an incident involving police officers in a grocery store parking lot last week. Here's former homicide prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Bernarda Villanueva on what the officers might be facing.
You also have the administrative charges, but the administrative charges more has to do with whether the officer violated any of the office procedure and whether that officer should continue still serving as a police officer.
She went on to say that she can see arguments on both sides, but that it's an issue of fact. And the Medal of Honor, Captain Larry Taylor will be the 33rd Tennessean to receive the medal. News 2 says the Chattanooga Vietnam veteran will be presented with the award from President Biden at the White House. Taylor was one of the first Cobra helicopter pilots and conjured up a plan in battle to save the lives of 4 soldiers while piloting that copter. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
You know, if you're a fan of Legend Steakhouse like I am, you can enjoy some of those same flavors right at home, right off your very own grill. Just take a walk down your local grocery store out places like Walmart and Kroger and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. You'll likely see his famous fruit tea at your local grocery store, along with salad dressings and Johnny Fleeman's steak marinades. Now, Fleeman's proprietary blend will give your steaks, chicken, and chops a flavor that will hit a home run with family and friends. It's low in sodium, a third of other brands, so you don't have to worry about over-marinating. You can also use this marinade to enhance almost any dish, your favorite rice recipes, fresh vegetables, just about anything. So if your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, go to johnnyfleeman.com. And it goes without saying, for those times when you want someone else to do the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or for dinner. It is 3:36 now on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and we're in here all the way till 7 o'clock tonight. And then we'll have Mark Levin will take over. Hope you are doing well. This is a getaway Friday for a lot of folks, getting in their cars and maybe headed out for one last, weekend at the beach or one more trip to the mountains, got a cabin rented or something like that. Great fun. And a lot of things, that you can do on Labor Day. Just don't labor too much.
No worries on that for me.
Mm-hmm. Former President Trump has now said that he might take part in the next Republican primary debate. Now, this is the one that's going to be held on September 27th, later this month, because this is the first day of September. So, wow, we haven't even stopped to talk about that. It's the first day of September.
That it
wow.
is. Yeah.
But anyway, on the 27th, it'll be at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California, televised on Fox Business and on Univision. I think that's the way they say it. Univision.
I like that. Sounds good.
Yeah. On August 31st, Trump did not rule out the possibility of taking part in a future debate as he was doing an interview on the Todd Starnes radio show. He was asked, do you anticipate at some point jumping into the debates? He said, I might. I mean, it's possible. I like debating. I guess I won because of the debates. They've been very good to me, so I might. But at this moment, I'm leading by so much that it seems foolish to do it. Well, I think that's pretty much what he said all along, isn't it? if you look at the polls, I mean, Trump is, I mean, I looked at the polls today. It's ridiculous how far ahead he is. Let me just pull up the latest numbers. It's right over here. I've got it one click away. Here we go. The national, these again are national numbers, and I know that's not how we do it, but there's a Morning Consult poll where Trump leads DeSantis by 44 points. There's a Messenger Harris X poll where Trump leads DeSantis by 45 points. Overall, if you take all of the polls that are out there, and again, this is not the way we do it, but it is to give you some idea about the relative strength of former President Trump. It's the average is Trump leads DeSantis by 38 points. Here are the average numbers. Trump 52.7. That's a big number. That's a huge number. DeSantis 14.5. Ramaswamy 7.5. Haley 5.7. Pence 5. Christie 2.8. Scott 2.0. And then a smattering of others. But nobody is likely to overcome, it would seem to me, such a lead. It would be pretty unheard of in the history of polling to have someone do it. Now, look, here's the thing. You could go, maybe you take everything you got and you look at what's happening in Iowa and you try to score an early win there. Well, let's just look at Iowa, okay? Right now in Iowa, the average is that Trump leads DeSantis by 26 points. Now, here it is in Iowa. Trump 43.2, DeSantis 17.2, Scott 10.2, Ramaswamy 5.2, Haley 4.6, Pence 3.8, and the rest, Pence, and everybody just goes down to a smattering of practically no real number at all. But I mean, that's amazing. Trump ahead in Iowa, where, you would think that everybody's going to put a lot of effort to try to unseat him there to score an early win. I mean, this all could be over by New Hampshire, really, honestly. You want the New Hampshire numbers? Okay, as long as I'm here, I've got them right at my fingertips. In New Hampshire, Trump leads DeSantis by 31 points. So, really, honestly, if he comes out big in Iowa, and then he comes out big in New Hampshire, by the time it gets to us, which, we get to vote on Super Tuesday, it could all be over. He could have pretty much, a lot of people will fall out. There's no sense, being somebody who just is not going to be able to make up the ground. And I think a lot of people would then just sort of pull out at that point. So it looks like to me, I don't see anything that changes it. Trump will be the nominee. And he doesn't need to do the debate to secure the nomination. 61% of Republicans said they strongly or somewhat approved of President Trump's decision not to participate in the first debate. See, it didn't hurt him at all. 22% said they did not. And the remaining 16% said, I'm not sure. I worry about these people who are not sure about something. As for the second debate, 57% of Republicans said they believe Trump should participate, and 17% said he should not. And as far as running mates go, he can look at the rest of this whole pool of people as potential running mates. President Trump praised the Vivek Ramaswamy when asked by talk show host Glenn Beck if he'd given any consideration to the 38-year-old biotech entrepreneur as a potential running mate. I think he's great, Trump told Beck. Anybody that said, I'm the best the president generation, he said it a couple of times. I have to like a guy like that. So there we go. All right. Admittedly, there are trials, there are tribulations ahead for Donald Trump, difficult times, but it doesn't seem to matter because when you're talking about Trump, you're talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
That's right. And so it doesn't hurt him. The more you attack him, the stronger he becomes with the base. And by the way, these are not the droids you're looking for. Now, as long as we're talking about 2024, What about the other side of the equation and Joe Biden? Will he exit the race? You know, I have a great deal of respect for Susan Ferricchio, who writes for the Washington Times. And her headline on this is, Bumbling Biden gives no signs of exiting race, but Democrats are keeping substitutes in mind. President Biden's public stumbling, bumbling, and low approval ratings have Democrat Party officials wringing their hands about the 2024 presidential race, but predictions he will drop out of the contest are becoming increasingly far-fetched as his re-election campaign gears up slowly. Still, political watchers are speculating. Fundraisers and former aides have anonymously complained that the Biden campaign is not ramping up quickly enough, will not be ready to take on likely presidential nominee, Republican nominee Donald Trump. Biden's gaffes and physical stumbles on camera have also raised alarms he's too old for the rigors of a presidential campaign, let alone another full term. After his last year in office, if he still survived, he would be 86. He has even been accused of quiet quitting, a term for those who do their bare minimum at work rather than leaving the job entirely. So Biden's team is now fretting, they say, about a planned debate between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and a Republican presidential candidate, and California Governor Gavin Newsom. Increasingly, Gavin Newsom is being viewed by many as a nuisance to some of President Joe Biden's political advisors. Then she goes on to quote Fox Business Network reporter Charlie Gasparino, who hangs out with a bunch of those Wall Street people, right? He said, Wall Street advisors are gaming out scenarios that substitute Mr. Biden on the 2024 ticket for Mr. Newsom or Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, bypassing unpopular Vice President Kamala Harris. Mr. Biden would then drop out after winning the nomination, the investment banking company Piper Sandler speculated in a secret report. The scenario, as crazy as it all sounds, is making the rounds on Wall Streets. You hear it in private dinners with top execs, and I'm privy to it, and increasingly in research reports floating around among financial advisors. Public polling has strongly warned the Democrat Party that Mr. Biden is not in a good position to win this re-election. Another AP poll found that 1/3 of Americans approve how the president has handled the economy, only 1/3. So that means that 2/3 have do not have a good feeling about that. So, I mean, the Democrats are starting to sweat. Now, Susan Ferricchio says she believes ultimately Democrats are unlikely to push Mr. Biden to the side without having a better substitute. And pollsters say it would be political suicide to sideline Ms. Harris, the first female vice president and first president of color. But her numbers are worse than Biden's, and her problem with incoherent messaging makes her less. Oh, I mean, honestly, you want to give me Kamala Harris as the nominee? I'll take all that I can get. I mean, to watch her go through a debate in which she talks about the wheels on the bus go round and round, and she talks about this, that, and the other, and she goes and she talks in circles, and none of it makes any sense. Although unilaterally substituting Mr. Newman or Mr. Pritzker on the 2024 ballot may seem politically savvy to some political party leaders, shoving aside Ms. Harris would almost certainly cost Democrats the support of minority voters, particularly black women who make up a sizable chunk of the critical base turnout. Her unfavorable rating, according to an Economist YouGov poll, is 55%. Look, it seems increasingly clear to me that there's little doubt that Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. There are a lot of scenarios out there, and I know the one. I hear you screaming into the radio that I'm missing one, because everybody, you hear this all the time. It's going to be Michelle Obama. 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 It's not going to be Michelle Obama. It's not. Michelle Obama has a distaste for Washington, the likes of which you can't even begin to understand. She hated every single moment she was in the White House. And she was not unquiet about telling people how much she hated the restrictions that were placed upon her life when she became the First Lady. She does not have the appetite for this. And anybody who tells you it's going to be Michelle Obama is really not, I think, plugged into what kind of person Michelle Obama is. It would be, I think if they could get her to do it, it might not be a bad choice from their perspective, but I don't think they're going to be able to get her to do it. So, again, the reason you don't hear the name Michelle Obama in this is because I think she privately, quietly around people have said that she doesn't want it, not interested, thank you very much, quit asking. How it all unfolds, I don't know, but I am certain of one thing. I don't think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. If I'm wrong, I'm not going to eat a hat or anything, but I'll tell you, I don't think I'm wrong about this. I just don't think that Democrats are going to take that chance ultimately. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. One of the hardest things that we do as we grow older is notice that our parents or our grandparents are getting older too. And those things that were once so easy, the things that they did every day for themselves, have now become something of a struggle. And you're thinking they're going to need some help. But maybe you're not in a position to provide it. Maybe you got your own family. Maybe you got, job responsibilities. Maybe you're not even in the same area where they live. Well, this is where assisted family care can help. They can connect you with a responsible, compatible, compassionate helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could very well qualify for a little-known benefit that will help cover the types of expenses we're talking about here. Assisted Family Care has a lot of experience helping those in Middle Tennessee who qualify to get access to this benefit. You see, many veterans are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance, no cost to them. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may well qualify for the benefit for you or your spouse. The application process, daunting and confusing. Call Assisted Family Care in Nashville. Years of experience in cutting through the red tape to help veterans receive this benefit if they are eligible. Assisted Family Care can help. Assisted Family Care will be there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. if I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return's going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
An active manhunt in Pennsylvania, an ambulance vehicle stolen in Tennessee, an investigation over in New Jersey after the fatal helicopter crash yesterday, and beware of online scammers over the holiday weekend. Those stories and more coming up at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a big jobs report today. In July, unemployment was at 3.5%. In August, it rose to 3.8%. But the economy did add 187,000 new jobs. There are about 6.37 million people out of work, according to calculations. And so that means the economy may be cooling, which may forestall additional interest rate hikes, but that will remain to be seen. In the meantime, looking at the markets, Dow Jones Industrials ended the day up 115 points, S&P up 8, NASDAQ down 3, so a mixed indices here today. Standing by from Beacon Capital Management is Ty Draper, going to tell us more about what it takes to get by in the volunteer state of Tennessee.
Hey, Brian, according to personal finance website GoBankingRates.com, the annual living wage for a single person in Tennessee is $48,714, calculated by using the 50-30-20 budget, where 50% covers necessities such as housing and food, 30 is for discretional spending, and 20 is for savings. Now, Tennessee is below the national average of $57,200 annually, and less than half of that of Hawaii, coming in first at annually $112,411. Unfortunately, with rising inflation and housing costs, many of these individuals have had to cut back on their personal retirement savings, potentially preventing them from retiring on their planned timeline.
All right, Ty, thank you so much. Listen, find out about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, if you have a desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. Nashville Gold and Coin is the place to go if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion. Let me tell you, it's the place I do business, and it's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They also specialize in buying and selling and appraising of coins. Do you have any idea how much those old coins that might be laying around your house could be worth? I brought in a few silver coins I had in a shoebox, been in my sock drawer forever, turned out to be worth $1,652. I bought a whole bunch of socks with that. And whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or just want to find out what the coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldenCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldenCoin.com.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 90 degrees, and this 3-day labor holiday weekend looking nice. Sunny skies, partly cloudy here and there, and the temperatures will be in the high 80s, low 90s, and all the way down to the high 60s of the low most of the weekend. Complete weather and traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. A manhunt in Pennsylvania for a convicted murderer who escaped a county jail after he was sentenced and awaiting transfer to a state prison. Dave Packer.
The fugitive, identified as 34-year-old Daniello Cavalcante, convicted on August 22nd of fatally stabbing his girlfriend in front of her children. Sentenced to life, he broke out of the Chester County lockup on Thursday. Chester County District Attorney Deb Ryan doesn't think he went far.
We believe that he is hiding somewhere locally and that he is alone.
Cavalcante also wanted in his native Brazil in a separate murder case. Pennsylvania State Police Captain Bob Wagner.
I can assure you we plan on going nowhere until he is captured.
The county prison warden says they're investigating how Cavalcante was able to escape.
And there's a $10,000 reward for any information that leads to Cavalcante's capture. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 reports that a suspect is now in custody after allegedly stealing an ambulance and crashing into a police car this afternoon. It was on I-24 East. Reports indicate the vehicle was stolen at around 1:30 from Tenova Healthcare in Montgomery County. I-24 East is down to one lane near mile marker 56. Officials are still investigating. No injuries were reported. And an investigation underway in New Jersey into yesterday's helicopter crash claiming the life of a 44-year-old pilot. NTSB air safety investigator Aaron McCarter today saying they're considering many factors but have an idea of the sequence of events.
The helicopter actually went out of control first and then proceeded to suffer a catastrophic failure. So it does not appear that a catastrophic failure existed first. It appears that the helicopter went out of control and subsequently came apart on its way down to the earth.
And he later said they were looking at the weather, air traffic control, and how all those three things interacted with each other to help us determine what actually happened. And the Better Business Bureau warning that after Overstock.com acquired Bed Bath & Beyond and revamped its website, scammers are taking advantage of the big changes by targeting consumers with fake sales. You're lured in by an ad on social media for Bed Bath & Beyond products that are dramatically discounted, and then you're directed to a website that looks very realistic and even includes the logo of Bed Bath & Beyond and some product information, so you make the purchase and the money goes straight to scammers. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and this is the first day of September. That's right. See you in September, we said yesterday when we left, and here we are today. This is, of course, the Getaway Friday before the Labor Day weekend. A lot of people taking advantage to get on out the door a little early, I have a feeling. So if you're in your car and you're headed out, stay with us as long as this booming 100,000-watt signal will stay with you, which is quite a long ways. I mean, we go all the way up into Kentucky. We go all the way down almost, I think, to Huntsville. Left and right, it's just a big old swath of Middle Tennessee. And we're happy to have you with us. And especially, when we got that new transmitter, about a year and a half ago, 2 years?
A couple of years, I think.
Yeah. Boy, I mean, that sucker is a beast. And you can hear us a long way down the path. And that's one of the great things about WTN is we cover so much area beyond just the Nashville area. All right. And one other thing. At the bottom of this hour, after the news with Mac Maury, at the bottom of the hour, it will be time for our first round of Phone Your Farb Friday. Now, we want you to get your thoughts together because, it's better when you have your thoughts together. If you've got something that's on your mind, something you want to say, if you have a question, if you have something you want to take umbrage with, a bee in your bonnet, a burr in your saddle, whatever it is, we want you to be a part of that. And that's at 4:35 and 5:35. So, we want you to really think hard and just come at me with whatever it is you're trying to say.
Don't think too hard. You might strain something.
Well, that's right. We don't want you to strain stuff, especially as you're headed out on a weekend,
that's right.
3-day weekend. We don't want you to do that. But I mean, so many people, it's just part of what it is to be here in Middle Tennessee. It really is true. Here in Middle Tennessee, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. How you doing? I really love your show. I mean, lovely. I appreciate all that. Those are lovely sentiments. Get right to it. Get to the issue. All right? No time for small talk. Listen, we want to get a lot of people across the goal line.
Now everyone's going to go, hey, Brian, how are you?
Yeah, everybody's going to go out their way. Yeah, that's right now. Listen, before we get to that, I want to have a conversation about this. The president of the United States, yes, it's Joe Biden. I'm sorry, it's still Joe Biden. I checked earlier. It still is. He is making marijuana a political issue. You may remember, I think it was for the midterm elections, he pardoned just about anybody who'd been convicted just purely on a marijuana charge. He pretty much pardoned them. Now, he's thinking about having marijuana moved from a Schedule 3 drug, from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3 drug. And that would, I don't know that there would still be some penalties associated with that. It would not legalize marijuana on a federal level, but it certainly would make it easier to do certain things. Here's a story from the Washington Examiner. Moving to Schedule 3 would not legalize the drug at the federal level, but would make it easier to own and operate a marijuana-based business and to conduct cannabis research. Businesses could deduct expenses on their taxes, for example, and could find it easier to use traditional banking and lending services. It could also pave the way for a future move toward full descheduling. I mean, the whole thing about you do things in increments. Honestly, it's out of the Democrat playbook. You do things incrementally. And so if they get it down to Schedule 1, then they decide, well, why not we just go ahead and deschedule it and make it basically a legal drug? Well, here's my question. I mean, are you okay with I know many of you out there feel like, that marijuana is the end all and be all and man alive. There's no reason why it should be illegal. Do you support Joe Biden going down this incremental ramp toward making marijuana fully legal in America? Because he thinks there's political gain in it. What do you say? 615-737-9986. I really do want to know what you think about this. The federal government is officially recognizing, said one guy, that the cannabis has medicinal value and does not have a high potential for abuse. Cannabis stocks, there are companies out there that deal in states where it's legal. And by the way, where is it legal? 23 states have legalized recreational marijuana. 38 allow it for medicinal use right now. So, we're really sort of at a point now where nearly half the country, you can get marijuana either for recreational or for medical use. 615-737-9986. Let me just go to the phones right now. Are you in favor of Joe Biden doing this? I mean, he probably will get a bump out of this thing politically. Let's go to Heath in Nashville. Heath, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Heath?
How you doing, Mr. Wilson?
Doing fine.
I just tuned in and picked up on this conversation. I just wanted to maybe inform your listeners that the marijuana has pretty much already been legalized in the state of Tennessee. Cannabis hemp flower is legalized and sold, as well as oils and edibles. And really the only difference between what has been legalized and what is illegal is a molecule. Maybe you were already discussing this before I tuned in, but they're selling products called Delta 8, Delta 10, these other similar type products that are a cannabis derivative. Mm-hmm. And they do the same thing, have the same effects, can be used in the same ways as marijuana.
So you're saying it doesn't matter because there are ways around it.
Well, really what I'm saying is this is a conversation about a molecule.
Yeah, I understand the difference between hemp and cannabis. I got you. All right. Thanks, Heath.
Cannabis.
Go ahead. Well, I want to get some other calls in, but thank you, Heath. Appreciate for the information. Jonathan, out on the road. What do you say, Jonathan? You okay with Joe Biden going down this path? Jonathan.
Yes.
It's you, buddy. You're up.
All right. Hey, well, I was just to say, I used to smoke this stuff years and years. A, I think it ought to be in the same category as alcohol. And B, man, the Republican Party could clean up if they jump ahead of Biden.
You think this is something that the Republicans should embrace?
I think they ought to jump out ahead of Joe Biden no more than the next election. Man, there's a lot of people I know that have done this stuff for a long time, and they lose some votes that otherwise, libertarians especially, that otherwise they'd get.
All right, Jonathan. All right, man. Thank you much. Ronnie in Murfreesboro, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Ronnie?
Yeah, two things. He would make prostitution legal if he thought it'd get him 10 votes. The other thing is, looking at his deterioration for the last 18 months, do you think he'll even know where he is day to day in another year?
Well, understand that when we say Biden, we're talking about the Biden administration. And so this is coming from somewhere within the administration, but ultimately he sort of has to sign off on it. The question is, does he know what he's signing off on? Well, apparently he's already moving toward that by, doing the pardons, which was an overtly political move. Do you think he'll gain votes or lose votes with this? I mean, because some people do not want marijuana to be.
I think he'd gain votes just like he did with the student loan thing.
Well, let me then is this something that Republicans should reconsider then? Because, I think here in the state of Tennessee, for example, every time the state legislature gets together on an annual basis, they talk about, okay, should we legalize or make medical marijuana something that we consider in Tennessee? And it never gets very far down the path. It almost always dies. Well, it has died. It's died every time it's come up, as far as I know. So, I mean, is this something that Republicans should change their position about?
I don't know. There would be some that would vote for it and some that wouldn't. I don't use it. Don't use alcohol either, but I don't see much difference between the two. I mean, look how much havoc alcohol causes on our society. So, I don't know.
All right, man. Thank you, Ronnie. Melissa and Mount Juliet, you're up next. What's your thought on it, Melissa?
Hi, Brian. I'm a conservative and I'm not a marijuana user, but I am for marijuana being taken off the Schedule 1 list because it is very, very hard to do research on that drug. We know very little about the side effects or the potential benefits. And so if it goes down to a Schedule 3, then researchers will have easier access to it.
And you think that's worth investigating further?
I really do. Marijuana has been used very effectively in some states to treat epilepsy, for example. I'm not saying it's the cure-all, be-all, but there are things that we don't know and we need to know.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Melissa. I greatly appreciate it. 615-737-9986. The President of the United States says he's in favor, perhaps, of moving it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, and it's being done for political purposes. He thinks it's a winning political argument for him. How do you feel about it? Bo in Portland, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Bo?
Well, yes, sir, Mr. Wilson. The previous caller was talking about it is legal in Tennessee, mostly anyway. But I myself, being a CDL owner or a possessor, until they say I can partake in this when I'm off the clock and have a test that if I say do get into an accident, that there's a test that proves I'm not high at the time, the point is moot, and Joe Biden's just, throwing something out there to get votes.
Well, that's exactly right, and he thinks it's a winning thing. Should Republicans reconsider their position on this, given the fact that we've got 38 states that allow medical use and 23 where legalized recreational marijuana is the case? Is it time for Republicans to rethink this?
I agree with the lady on before me. It's got to be taken off the schedule, the higher schedule, and brought to where they can do some more work on it.
All right. Listen, Bo, thank you for that. Greatly appreciate it. Time for a couple more. Jeff in Columbia. Jeff, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Jeff?
I say that they should definitely reschedule it. And I hate to contradict the first lady, but there's been tons of research on the benefits of medical marijuana, and it's just like anything else. If if it gets out of hand, just like alcohol, if you don't use it in a proper way, it can be detrimental. But they should definitely, and the Republicans should definitely get on board.
You think so? Well, it is a very libertarian position. Yeah, well, that's exactly. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It is a rather libertarian position, but not so much a Republican position in the past.
Yes, but you need to understand, a lot of Republicans, and I hate to say this, they're in the pocket of Big Pharma, and Big Pharma wants to keep it illegal.
All right, Ray, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Isn't that interesting? It's 4:20 on Super Talk 99.7. Busy Bee can help you with your air conditioning if it goes out. I mean, if it's on the fritz right now, you don't want to do that. I mean, you want to get it back up and running, right? So just call this number, 615-775-7833. They'll buzz over to your hive and get you up and running. Now, occasionally, I mean, you got to understand these air conditioning systems, they don't last forever. If you find that, we've got a lot of years on this one and, maybe it's time to replace it. Well, you're not going to find a better deal on HVAC and plumbing replacement systems than at Busy Bee. You should become a member of the Beehive Club for as little as $99. 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, 10% off all repairs. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
A manhunt in Pennsylvania and today's money news. We got those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 24 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air on this Getaway Friday, September 1st, the first day of September. This story, it really makes me mad. 60% of active shooters stopped by a good guy with a gun. Are you ready for this? Because this is not what you hear from the mainstream media at all. This is not the kind of thing that they will report. According to just released data from the Crime Prevention Research Center, 41% of active shooting incidents were stopped by armed civilians. Outside of the so-called gun-free zones, which bar the legal carrying of firearms, over 63% of active shooting cases were ended by an armed civilian. This comes from John R. Lott Jr., former Justice Department senior advisor for research and statistics. His latest to challenge undercounting and bias in government reports on shootings and backup efforts by Second Amendment and police groups to encourage people to carry firearms. Lott continually updates his data to include all cases, including those the government overlooks or misclassifies, to counter media reports. I mean, it's really something. His information is especially critical since the Biden administration, are you ready for this? Stopped counting defensive actions by civilians. Following Sandy Hook school shooting, Wayne LaPierre, executive vice president of the National Rifle Association, famously said that the only way to stop a bad guy was a good guy with a gun. Well, they stopped counting those numbers, and therefore, you have people like Lott who go back in and try to recorrect the record. Here's another version of the story from the folks at Breitbart. Report from John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, shows that from 2014 to 2022, armed citizens stopped active shooters 8 times more often than the FBI has reported. In the reports which Lott has published on Real Clear Politics, he says out of 440 active shooter incidents from 2014 to 2022, an armed citizen stopped 157. We also found that the FBI had misidentified 5 cases, usually because the person who stopped the attack was incorrectly identified as a security guard. While the FBI claims that just 4.6 of active shooters were stopped by law-abiding citizens, the percentage I found was 35.7. I'm more confident that we have identified a higher share of recent cases, and our figure for 2022 was even higher, 41.3%. 41.3% of the time, a active shooter situation is stopped by a law-abiding citizen carrying a gun. That's information that the Biden administration has tried to bury. That's information that the FBI has tried and agreed to bury. The FBI data has not been adjusted, but what you need to know is the FBI number is a political number and does not reflect reality. Lott suggested that political pressure may be causal in the FBI hesitance in this case. The FBI data on active shootings is missing so many defensive gun uses that it's hard to believe that it isn't intentional. Errors can happen, but the failure to fix past reports shows a troubling disregard for the truth. The reality is that armed, law-abiding citizens are unsung guardian angels. Look, you cannot, it's getting to the point now where you just can't trust your government to do anything with any kind of accuracy. And this is another example of where the FBI has been corrupted by the political process. Catching pressure from people on the left, people who are at the highest levels of the FBI, and sort of doubling over under the pressure of people in the Biden administration. They are messing with the data. The data are wrong. So understand that you need people like John Lott who are going to go out there and try to look at this thing and try to give you some corrected numbers. I believe that John Lott is right. I believe the FBI is unreliable. I think the Justice Department is unreliable on things like this. And, look, remember the one thing that most police officers, if you talk to rank and file police officers on the street, and even in a city where they really do a very good job, the first thing they're going to tell you is, when seconds count, remember, the police are minutes away and always will be. There's just no way they can be everywhere at one time. And then you look at major metropolitan areas where they're trying to defund the police, understand that the response time is actually going to be stretched out. Fewer police, the longer the response time. Fewer police, the longer the response time. I don't know about you. I've never wanted to be in a situation. I remember a friend of mine, I had a Democrat friend in D.C., reporter friend, and I was talking to him one day and was surprised to find out he was very pro-Second Amendment. And I said, well, John, I'm a little surprised by that. Why are you so pro-Second Amendment? Because that doesn't seem to be something that most Democrat liberals are in favor of. And he said something that always stuck with me, and I feel like this is the way I feel today. I never want to be in a situation where it's all them and no you. I agree. I don't want to be in that situation. It would be nice, however, if we could get accurate information from our FBI. It would be nice if they weren't so politically motivated that they cannot tell the truth. 30 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock.
It's 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 91 degrees in Nashville. Full weather forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Days after being found guilty of murder and getting a life in prison sentence as Pennsylvania Chester County inmate escapes from custody, now local, state, and federal authorities are engaged in an all-out manhunt. Dave Packer.
It's not thought the 34-year-old Daniello Cavalcante went far from the prison where he escaped. Supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal Robert Clark.
Everywhere in the immediate area here in Chester County, we are going through every nook and cranny, responding to every tip that we get in, and diligently following up on places we may believe he may be believed to be hiding.
Meanwhile, Chester County DA Deb Ryan telling area residents,
Lock your doors, keep your eyes on your kids, and keep your eyes on your neighbors and your friends.
a $10,000 reward is being offered for information leading to Cavalcante's capture.
Now over to some money news. Chuck Sievertson walks us through Wall Street on this Friday, the 1st of September.
Major indexes ending mostly positive after a better-than-expected jobs report. The S&P gained 8 points. The Dow up 116. The Nasdaq lost 3 points. 30-year mortgage rates fell again this week. The average around 7.5%, its lowest in 3 weeks. Tesla is discounting the price of 2 of its higher-end vehicles again. Bloomberg says the Model S now starts at about $75,000, about $30,000 cheaper than at the beginning of the year. The Model X is now $41,000 cheaper from the start of the year. The Model X now eligible for federal tax subsidies that Chief Elon Musk opposed. 85,000 high chairs are under a recall due to a falling hazard. Tommy International recalling its Boone Flair and Flair Elite high chairs sold in the U.S. and Canada before 2016. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says that 11 children have fallen and gotten hurt. The company is offering repair kits.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather up next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 38 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on this Getaway Friday, September 1st. So glad that you're with us. Hope that you have plans for a good Labor Day weekend with friends, family, or whatever. Try to keep it to a reasonable level so that we'll have you back here on Tuesday when we return after the little holiday. You'll get to hear the best of Brian Wilson and The Drive. And that 3-minute and 25-second show will be repeated on a loop. No, I'm just making it. You know what time it is? It's time for that little thing we like to call Phone Your Farb Friday. You know the number. It's 615-737-9986. This is what we call Phone Your Farb Friday. Farb means friend and radio buddy, and I am your friend and radio buddy. And the idea is here, you call up. Maybe you got a bee under your bonnet. Maybe you got a burr under your saddle. Maybe you have a bug in a place that I hope you never, ever find a bug. Hey. But one way or the other, we want you to get on this 100,000-watt soapbox that we call Super Talk 99.7 and express yourself within boundaries because it is a family show. And so, listen, get busy, folks. A lot of open phone lines. We want you to participate. Really, when you think about it, talk radio was the first, medium that actually was interactive. So now we got all the lines going, and let's start this whole thing out. We'll start with Ray in Silver Point. Ray, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your mind today, Ray?
Hey, Brian. Thank you. I was just going to keep with what you were talking about before about marijuana. I'm probably the most conservative person you've talked to today, and I think it's a natural product and should be okay. I'm on the fence, though, about like places your employer being able to drug test you for it because they don't for alcohol, but, I think it's natural and should be legalized.
All right. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Appreciate the sentiment. Yeah, we did have an earlier conversation about that for sure. 615-737-9986. If you didn't get answered or we cycled through again, give us another call. We have several open lines now. Dwayne in Hohenwald. Dwayne, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your mind, Dwayne?
Well, I read a story on the internet. I don't know if it's Town Hall, Breitbart, or some. I usually check about 4 sources.
Yeah.
But it was, they said the FBI shot and killed a 100% disabled veteran unarmed in Henderson, Tennessee.
Yes, that story, I'll tell you who's been doing a good job on covering that story has been the Tennessee Star. And I sort of leave stories like that until I can find, an element for discussion. I usually leave those to our newsroom, who I think has reported on that. But yes, indeed, that did apparently happen.
But did they know what he did, or
I don't know, and that's the question that people keep asking. There seems to be something to this story. Let me just say this, Dwayne. You have reminded me that I need to get into that. So I will dig into that, and I'll try to bring you in the days ahead what I learned about that situation. But you might want to go back and read some of the things that the Tennessee Star has reported, because I have seen that story there. I check about probably, 80 websites every day before I do this program. And I do recall that they've had a pretty good run on covering that story. Let's go to George in Reading, Pennsylvania. George, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, George?
Yes, Brian, this is what has me ticked off.
Okay.
In this week's Washington Examiner, there's a story about the border wall, where we're paying $130,000 a day to store the equipment that was meant to go up in the wall, or $47 million since Biden took over. And he refuses to sell it to the states, and they want to buy it. He's selling it for pennies on the dollar to other people.
It's vindictive, isn't it? What he's doing is he's selling it for pennies on the dollar. On the off chance, they never want to think that they're not going to win the re-election. But if Trump gets into office again, they don't want to have him just say, "Okay, get back to building that wall. It's all still there." He wants it gone. He wants it, completely gone. And what a waste of taxpayer money to have spent good money on these these pieces for the wall, and then to sell it for pennies on the dollar because you want to be politically vindictive. Yeah, George, it's really reprehensible is what it is. 615-737-9986. Bonnie in Tullahoma, you're up next on The Drive. Bonnie, what's on your mind today?
Yes, I was talking about the thing with Trump, and I just kind of think it's kind of weird, how Biden's family does all this stuff, and nobody does anything about anything. You don't hear it, and then they want to hammer Trump. And then my ex-landlord told me, said, well, all these people are funding Trump to pay for something of his, just like he was so jealous about it. It's like, good God, if they want to do it, let them do it.
Yeah, I'm not following you on all of that, Bonnie, but I mean, it really is true that there is a dual standard at play inside our government, where if you have a D after your name, you get one level of treatment. If there's an R after your name, there's a whole different level of treatment. I mean, this sweetheart deal they were going to give Hunter Biden, and thank goodness the judge blew that up, and will give, the House of Representatives time to do its job. Look, one thing I know about Donald Trump is I don't think he's worried about this stuff at all. I think he will go right along, and it's a very good chance, I would say it's almost fait accompli at this point, that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee. All right, let's go to Bill in McMinnville. Bill, you're on with Brian on The Drive. What's on your mind, Bill?
Yes, sir. I was wanting to elaborate on the legalizing of marijuana. It's like that Republicans do shy away from it, and they shouldn't. And I think that Trump and Biden both are for legalization through the whole United States, and it does help. And
in what way so how does it help you?
Okay, I'm in severe pain.
Yeah.
And and you got to get a certain kind. You just don't go out and find weed. I mean, there's different kinds and different strains, and that's why they call them a bud tender.
Well, okay, so let me get at this. Let me just add to this. I have never been one who's in favor of legalization or medical marijuana. I look at it as incrementalism, that you start out and so that's my personal opinion on it. It has changed somewhat by an experience that I had. Now, you talk about pain. It's hard to get doctors to prescribe you the medicine that you need for pain. And if you go through an episode, and I've made no bones about it, I've told everybody about it, I went through a horrible case of shingles. That's probably the most painful thing I'd ever had in my life. And, you can't really get doctors to give you good pain medication in many cases because they're so afraid of you getting addicted and, and it blows back on them. They're very hinky about it. But, if you cannot get the medical system to work with you when you truly are in pain, and provide you with what you need, which they're increasingly hesitant to do, then what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? And more that people than you have told me that in some form or other, marijuana or the gummies or whatever it is have helped them with their pain management. And so I listen to that, and it does inform my opinion. Makes me think, that I need to keep an open mind about this kind of stuff. Bill, thank you for that call. Greatly appreciate it. James in Nashville. James, you're up next on The Drive. James, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Brian. I just wanted to say that getting on my nerves lately is Biden keeps getting worse, that every time he stands up there and says something stupid, that all the Democrats clap and think he's so great like they can't see it too. You can't tell me they're not seeing this.
They see it, and they're worried about it. I mean, we did a story a little earlier about how Democrats are all whispering among themselves. It's like that old fairy tale about the king who had no clothes. The emperor who had no clothes. And nobody wanted to tell the emperor that he was naked. You know, nobody can tell Joe Biden, you know, he doesn't want to hear it apparently. And family members are being, I think it's elder abuse, quite frankly. I think that Jill Biden has done a great disservice to her husband, and he has embarrassed himself, and he's the butt of many, many, many jokes. And she really has not, doesn't seem to be willing to consider the possibility that it might be time for old Lunch Bucket Joe to hang it up. I think there are many Democrats who are trying to find a way through this thing, which is why I've said, I don't know how it's all going to play out. I can't tell you exactly how it'll go down, but I don't think that Joe Biden will end up being the nominee. Something will happen. Something will happen. Aubrey in Murfreesboro, you're up next on The Drive. What's on your mind on this Phone Your Farb Friday?
Brian, you spoke earlier in the week about name recognition as far as elections and things were concerned in relation to the presidential election, but I'll say that it covers all elections.
You're
because that's why these people are voted in over and over and over without people doing the homework on what they're doing or not doing while they're in office. That name just becomes a recognition, and that's who they pull the lever for.
Yep, and so what's the solution in your mind?
Well, I just think that people need to be aware of who they're voting for, and the only thing I can say is educate yourself.
Yep, that is true. A lot of people would say, you know, term limits. I'm not necessarily in favor of term limits because, you know, there's good about term limits and there's bad about term limits. I'm just sort of one of those who thinks, well, we have term limits like you think. We have term limits every time there's an election. But you got to do your homework. You're right. People have got to do their homework. Got one time for one more. Josh in Murfreesboro. Josh, you're up with Brian on The Drive. What's on your mind, Josh?
Mr. Wilson, I work at a relatively high level of employment as a professional consultant. And yesterday my company asked me, I say asked in air quotes, to include my pronouns inside of my email signature.
Yeah.
Which I refused. All right. I haven't had much time to dig into this. I don't know if you or anyone else knows if there is anything that would protect me from having to do so, because, you know, I don't think that that's necessary. I think it's relatively clear who I am and you know, what gender I am. Not that that even matters.
Let me ask you this, though. I mean, what was the reaction? Have you gotten any blowback yet?
I have, yes, sir.
And what if you don't mind sharing as much as you can?
Sure, I can share that we have a pretty new chief human resources officer. Yeah, there you go. And you know, they are asking, and again I use that in air quotes, that this be sort of a sweeping across the board effect. And I'm you know, I just want to make sure that before I continue my stance, because I will say, Brian, the money's good, right? I have children and a family, so I have to do what I got to do.
Yeah. Well, are they suggesting that you need to get on board or else?
Well, it's starting to smell that way.
Well, then what I would suggest to you, my friend, is to get a good lawyer, because I'm not a lawyer. I sometimes play one on the radio, but I'm not really a lawyer. This is an employment issue, and take it seriously. And, you know, I don't think you should be required to, but it ought to be something, you know, okay, if you want to do it, fine. If you don't want to do it, fine. But, you know, this is, you are not alone in this kind of stuff. You are not alone. We're way over 52 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let's talk about the Armory Ranges, 2 locations for your convenience. The Nashville Armory is at 4290 Killenwood Drive in Nashville. Over 15,000 square feet, which combines retail, classrooms, and, of course, pistol and rifle-rated ranges, so you can learn, become proficient, and stay that way. The second location, the Franklin Range at 390 South Winds Drive. There you'll find 10, count them, 10 state-of-the-art shooting ranges equipped with automated target control and custom shooting stalls that provide a virtually private shooting experience. And the folks that work there, well, listen, they pride themselves on hiring folks with expertise to advise even the most experienced shooter, but they also have the patience to guide those new to the two-way world. No attitude, no pressure. Gunsmithing back at the Nashville range. If you're buying your first gun or adding to the collection, you'll find a wide selection of new and pre-owned firearms, suppressors, optics, apparel, shooting accessories. And listen, it's the place to buy. It's the place to train. It's the place to shoot. To learn more, go to armoryranges.com, and please let them know that your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
5 o'clock, Mac Maury with your top stories. 89 degrees and a lovely holiday weekend weather-wise coming our way. Sunny skies and the highs in the high 80s, low 90s, the lows in the high 60s. Complete weather forecast. Latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Former President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 13 counts in Fulton County, Georgia, tied to what District Attorney Fani Willis alleges was a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 election in that state. Jay O'Brien tells us at least one other defendant is trying to get this case moved.
Former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Willis are still waiting on a federal judge to decide whether or not his case should be tried in federal court, where the jury pool is expected to be more favorable. Meadows memorably set up this call for Trump with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
But in court filings Thursday, the former chief of staff argued his case should be moved if even some of the actions he's charged with were part of his official duties as White House chief of staff.
In Tennessee, Metro Police releasing the name of the driver killed in a crash that shut down I-24 yesterday afternoon. They say 20-year-old Ivan Boykin of Smyrna was killed after the 2004 Honda Accord he was driving went out of control. It traveled across several lanes and then struck a guardrail at Hickory Hollow. Witnesses reported seeing another man exit the car and walk away from the scene. His identity is not known. In Ohio, police body camera footage has been released that shows the final moments of a pregnant black woman's life. 21-year-old Takaya Young was shot and killed in an incident involving police officers in a grocery store parking lot. It happened last week. Here's former homicide prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Bernarda Villalanoa on whether these shootings could be seen as justifiable and whether the officers will face charges.
I can see the arguments on both sides. It's an issue of fact. Did this officer believe that his life was in imminent danger of death or serious bodily injury? And if that's the case, then there wouldn't be any charges. Then if you look at from the side of the victim, was she nervous? Was she scared? Was she intending to actually drive through the officer and injure the officer? That's a question that we probably will never know.
In Tennessee, Fox 17 says that a petition was signed by thousands trying to get the Wilson County, Tennessee State Fair moved later in the year when temperatures become a bit cooler, like autumn. Organizers say due to contracts, it would be at least another 10 years until the fair could decide to change season. And in its 44-year history, the fair says they've only been rained out 3 nights. Nearly 2,300 people have signed the petition so far. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, bringing you news and information you can use. We're gonna teach you a few things on the way out the door as you are taking advantage, perhaps, of a getaway Friday to get the family out of town one last time before we have to all buckle down. And this is really sort of the last of. It's not technically the end of summer. But it's sort of like what you call the unofficial end of summer, Labor Day. And
I
you
never
can't
really
wear,
understood that. I mean, I guess in some climates it makes sense, but like they close all the pools.
Yeah,
and it's like, come on, it's 95 degrees.
I know. But you're right though. A lot of people do. It is also you can't wear white after Labor Day.
No, I
that really
very rarely
wasn't a
wear
problem
white
for
anyway.
me. I gave up my my white shoes in 1975. I did have some though.
Were they patent leather?
Yep, they were. As ugly and as gross as you might imagine. I'll tell you. Can I just share something with you and the audience? I'm having the best time right now. When I get off work, it's usually there's still a lot of light left in the day, and right now there is. And I go out on the back porch. And I am great. I am getting so much joy and satisfaction out of sitting back and watching my hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds, you say?
Hummingbirds, yeah. Wow, now that's going deep into the vault right there. Yeah, but they are pretty much getting ready to fly away. That's just the thing, They got to go down. Some of them actually cross the Gulf of Mexico and go all the way down to South America.
That's really amazing. I never would have thought that.
It is. And so, the hummingbirds, though, the other night it was a little cooler than it had been. And that makes the hummingbirds extremely active. They really want that sugar stuff that's in the hummingbird feeder.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I've never seen, it was crazy. It was like we had maybe 5-6 hummingbirds just zipping and zapping and just humming right in there. And they're very, by the way, protective and aggressive. They can be.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and so, and apparently they've taken a shining to Dawn because they have figured out that it's Dawn who puts the sugar water in the machine.
She's the provider.
She's the provider. So if it gets low, they come and look for her. I'm serious. They will come and look for her, and they'll just sit and they'll just look at her and they'll just flutter right in front of her like, hey, have you noticed over here? We don't have any sugar water. I love it. I love the hummingbirds so much, but they will. By the way, Seals and Croft. What was the year? I'm guessing 76.
I don't know. It doesn't say.
Doesn't say. Seals and Croft.
That's probably about right, though.
Yeah, about right. That's deep in the vault. Those guys were weird, though, because I think they worshipped hummingbirds. I'm not really sure. Let's talk about what's going on else in the news. Hunter Biden and Weiss, the special prosecutors, must provide an update by September 6th after the judge broke up the big plea agreement, that light rap on the knuckles. U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Noriega issued an order on yesterday, saying that Hunter Biden must supply the court an update by September 6th on the felony charges against him. And she said that includes any steps they believe the court needs to take. Defense attorneys have claimed that a diversion agreement shielding President Joe Biden's son from prosecution on the gun charge is still in place. This despite the fact that it was linked to a plea deal on tax offenses, which collapsed during a July hearing. Prosecutors with Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss's office say an immunity provision shielding the younger Biden never took effect, and he is still liable, could face further prosecution. That's what he's saying. These agreements, are not straightforward, and they contain some atypical provisions. So, what's going to happen here? I don't know, but the next update for the court will be in about 5 days from now. The White House, meanwhile, has asserted executive privilege over 200 Hunter and Joe Biden records. White House, this is from Breitbart, asserted executive privilege, meaning that, we're claiming you can't have these. Over 200 records housed at the National Archives concerning Hunter Biden's business. Well, why can't we see them? It doesn't have anything to do with the White House. Anyway, his business interactions with the Oval Office of the vice president during the Obama administration. There are 200 documents that everybody wants to see, and the National Archives has been FOIA'd for them, and they're not wanting to turn them over. And the Biden administration, current Biden administration, is claiming executive privilege. America's First Legal launched a lawsuit to obtain records from the archives encompassing communications between 2011 and 2013 with the name of Hunter Biden's company, Rosemont Seneca. In response to the request, NARA, which is the archives, refused to release the records, admitting the disclosure would reveal confidential advice between then Vice President Joe Biden and White House advisors. Well, hold it. Wait. There's confidential information from the Vice President and White House advisors that's being slipped to Hunter Biden? Wow. They did provide 861 records that apparently did not fall under executive privilege. Well, I don't care. I mean, the bigger question is, how in the world was the vice president conferring with people within the Obama administration? And then why was that information then being shared with Hunter Biden? A real question here. The scope of emails requested encompass some of Hunter Biden's earliest business ventures with an entity associated with Devon Archer, Eric Schwerin, and there were the Chinese entities and a man by the name of Xie Feng, who Hunter Biden identified as the super chairman with ties to the Communist Party. I mean, this stuff smells to high heaven, doesn't it? It just, the more you dig into it, the worse it gets. Now, here's what I'm going to say to you. Now that the White House is asserting executive privilege and saying, no, you can't have this, and you're going to hear probably in the days ahead other things that the Republicans and the House who are investigating Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all of that are going to be told, no, you can't have that, as it'll interfere with an investigation. I mean, it's already starting to happen. It seems like it's almost fait accompli that when the Republicans return after the Labor Day weekend and they get back to work, one of the first things that they're going to do is probably take a vote on whether or not there should be an impeachment inquiry. McCarthy seems to be on board. There are others that have a say in all this, including James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight Committee.
Joe Biden lies every day about his involvement and his knowledge in his family's crooked business dealings, and the day has come for the press to step up and accept responsibility that they got the story wrong, and Joe Biden does deserve to go through an impeachment inquiry to find out 100% of all the crimes that were committed by his family.
Well, let me see. What will happen is that some on the media left will just say, "Oh, this is just politics." No, there, but there really is a lot of there, and anybody who tells you that the House Republicans are just barking up the wrong tree really don't understand the depth of what has already been uncovered and what is likely to be uncovered. And I have a feeling right after they get back to work, you're going to hear a lot more about bank records and what they've uncovered. You're going to hear a lot more, and I think they're going to really just go ahead and buckle down and start the impeachment inquiry. Now, that's not an impeachment. You have to understand, the impeachment inquiry simply gives the House of Representatives sort of supercharged powers to investigate in a way that they normally don't have. And it will give them the ability to get at some documents and bring in some witnesses that normally they would not be able to compel that testimony. But they do have some sort of supercharged investigative abilities once they declare that they are beginning an impeachment inquiry. That's the investigation. The impeachment, if it comes down from the House, and if it was a party line vote, it would, be an impeachment of Joe Biden, is really sort of akin to what an indictment would be. And then the trial would take place over in the Senate, where, quite frankly, you're going to have to build an unassailable case to get the Senate to consider the possibility of really taking an impeachment trial seriously. Meanwhile, Republicans investigate a possible link between Biden aliases and his classified documents case. We told you about all this. Apparently, the president, former vice president, and now president, had email accounts with aliases that he would use to apparently share information, government information, with Hunter Biden. Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator Ron Johnson are investigating whether any documents containing the alleged aliases of Joe Biden were found among records taken from the former Washington office space or the Penn Biden Center. Right. The two Republican senators sent a letter to the National Archives looking for new information about thousands of President Biden communications that reportedly used or referenced a series of pseudonyms and secret email accounts. Mr. Grassley and Mr. Johnson specifically asked if any of these alleged pseudonym communications were stored at the Penn Biden Center, where classified documents were discovered last year. Could that be what he was holding on to? The president's alleged pseudonyms have become a topic of growing interest for Republican lawmakers and conservative organizations. Here are the pseudonyms: Robert L. Peters, Robin Ware. I think his middle name is Robinette, so they sort of drew from that. Robin Ware. And then the last one is J.R.B. Ware, as that's W-A-R-E, like Delaware. J.R.B. would be Joseph Robinette Biden. Now, in July of 2021, they found these alleged pseudonyms. They also identified possible personal email accounts and other accounts containing 67 Stingray, a possible reference to President Biden's prized 67 Corvette. And after identifying the various possible pseudonyms and corresponding email accounts, the two Republican senators began asking the Biden White House about the steps then Vice President Biden took to ensure that he followed federal record-keeping and archival requirements. Is what he had at the Penn Biden Center, or maybe in the garage next to the Corvette, did he have these documents that, that came from these pseudonym accounts? And if so, was he trying to keep this information from the National Archives and everyone else? I think that's a great question to be asked. Where were the Biden alias records found? At one particular point of interest from Mr. Grassley and Mr. Johnson is whether any of the 5,400 alleged pseudonym communications involving President Biden were found in boxes of records his personal legal team moved out of the Penn Biden Center last year. Penn Biden Center became a key office space for President Biden after serving time as vice president, and it was officially called the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Yeah, there was some global engagement going on, that's for sure. It involved Hunter Biden and his business partners and a bunch of the nastiest, ugliest group of business thugs that the world has ever seen. We're going to see a flurry of activity here in just a few days. It's been quiet, but that's because Congress has been out. But that doesn't mean that staff has not been working. And now when everybody comes in and gets updated, watch things start to get really, really interesting. Impeachment inquiry, not far off. 21 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Let's talk about United Structural Systems. But maybe you have had some problems with the recent rains that we had. Remember, they were really heavy there for a couple, 2 or 3 days. And if you think you might have a waterproofing or a structural problem that comes along with that, why don't you call the folks at USS? Here's the number, 615-488-7855. Look, I've told you a lot about what they can do. I can tell you that they're honest. They got, 25,000 satisfied residential customers. And I can tell you that there won't be any pressure. They'll just give you their best advice. But it's better perhaps to hear it from people who have actually gone through the process. Here's Gloria. I just want to say, first off, hats off to the crew for their hard, excellent work. I'm very pleased with the work they did. They did not leave any mess to be cleaned. Actually, you could not even tell that they had been there. Good, hard workers that made me love USS, and I tell everyone about your excellent customer service and work. Thank you for the respect your guys showed me. They were truly like a breath of fresh air. That was Gloria earlier this year. Here's Jerry. This is the best crew I've ever had do work on our house. Best I've ever seen. Very professional. They did an excellent job. This is their reputation. Don't take my word for it. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama. Online at USSTN.com or call this number, 615-488-7855.
A fatal car crash with the driver now identified, a fatal helicopter crash in New Jersey now being identified, and some college football news. I'll have those stories at 5:30. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk on this Getaway Friday as we head into the Labor Day weekend. We will not be here on Monday, but you get an opportunity to hear the best of the drive. Chris Webber works on this in a very, very aggressive way because it's hard to find those great moments, you know.
Let's not oversell it.
No, honestly, I don't ever get to hear the show because I'm doing the show. I like to hear, I like to listen in and see what you've picked. It's always a surprise to me. Oh, he picked that. Huh.
Why did he pick that?
Yeah, I often say that. No, it's fun. It's fun. And so we'll be back on Tuesday after the holiday. So, hang in there. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. This story is incredibly sad, and I think it's probably, I hate to say it, it sounds like to me it's right on the money. And if it's right on the money, we are in for a pretty shocking revelation at some point with regard to what happened in Maui. Apparently, look, when you go in and you ask police, what's the death toll? They're going to give you a number that does not reflect reality. They're going to give you a number that will be the people that they have identified. They've put a toe tag on that person, and that they have notified next of kin. So right now, that's somewhere above 115, 120, I would say, of people who have died in that incredibly swift fire for which there wasn't much time to respond. But if you ask people who know what's really going on behind the scenes, you're probably going to get a different answer about what's really happening. And I think this story really rings true to me. From Breitbart, Maui search crews have allegedly found 450 bodies. Local residents who are leading a grassroots effort said that they all came from the town of Lahaina. I can guarantee you right now, from what has been seen, the number is over 450, and it's going to get closer to 1,000. My Maui resident, Dale Hermo Fernandez, told the Breitbart he apparently has close contacts inside local recovery efforts, and said this in a recent interview with Breitbart News. They're not giving the number until they toe tag them and identify them, which is understandable. It's guaranteed it's going to be in the 400s. More likely, it's going to be around 850 or 900. And here's the tragic part about all this. About 40% of those who have died are going to end up, he says, being kids. He said he did not want to discuss the children too much out of respect for parents who are still holding out hope. But at this point, if you're a parent and you have not been able to find your child, I think it's slowly starting to settle on you that they're not lost, that they perhaps have perished. Right now, we're all in this void of hope, and we're in this void of hope. We have parents hoping the kids are on the other side of the island. They're hoping that kids would just run through a safe person's home, and we just can't get a hold of them. So they're holding out that hope. But the truth of the matter is, I've been in Lahaina. There is no hope. I've seen kids in there. I've seen, it's there. There is no hope. Hermo Fernandez said that on the day of the fires, before they had spread in Lahaina, school had been called off due to a power outage. His cousin had brought his kids with him on the way to work on the other side of the island, dropped them off at his father's house. But a lot of people didn't do that. A lot of kids were home because the school got called out. They got sent home because there's no electricity. And then they're at home and unable to figure out what to do when the fire swept through. They can't watch TV. They can't listen to the radio. They don't have any electricity. They don't know it's coming. And if they do figure it out, it's probably too late. Yeah, it's really sad. Described what has been seen in Lahaina. Whole families are lost, huddled in cars, hugging each other. This is firsthand, like a husband and wife hugging each other on Front Street in the car. It's bad. It's so bad. I don't want to get too far into the kids and all that out of respect for families. When it starts coming out, it's going to be heartbreaking. It is 30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
It is 5:30. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 88 degrees in Nashville. Complete weather forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that 20-year-old Yvonne Boykin was the driver killed in a car crash yesterday. It happened on I-24 yesterday afternoon. Officials say Boykin was driving a 2004 Honda Accord until the vehicle lost control and swept across traffic until running into a guardrail, and that crash caused closures for a large part of yesterday. Police said there was no evidence of impairment on part of the driver. And an investigation underway in New Jersey into yesterday's helicopter crash that claimed the life of a 44-year-old pilot. NTSB air safety investigator Aaron McCarter today saying they're considering a lot of factors, but have an idea right now of the sequence of events.
The helicopter actually went out of control first and then proceeded to suffer a catastrophic failure. So it does not appear that a catastrophic failure existed first. It appears that the helicopter went out of control and subsequently came apart on its way down to the earth.
He later said they're looking at the weather and air and traffic control and how all those things interacted with each other to help determine what actually occurred. And just in time for the big college football weekend, the ACC is the latest Power 5 conference to expand its membership. Reports say ACC university presidents and chancellors met this morning and voted to bring in Stanford and Cal and SMU. So now the ACC will go from Boston in the Northeast to Miami in South Florida, out to Dallas in the heart of the Southwest, and up to Northern California. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
All right, let me tell you about the folks over at DT McCall's. They got 5 convenient locations in Middle Tennessee. And, you say, well, what do they do? Well, they sell appliances, they sell furniture, they sell mowers, they sell guns. I mean, if you can think of what something you need for your home, chances are they've got it. And so, this is what I want to tell you about them. A good company, been around more than 100 years. You don't make it more than 100 years without having a reputation for treating people correctly. And whenever possible, DT McCall's uses locally manufactured and made products. What they're trying to do is keep the dollars here in Tennessee. For example, England furniture, not made in England at all, is made right here in Tennessee. Lazy Boy items made in Tennessee. Mattress line exclusive to DT McCall's, made in Tennessee. Listen, they're good people, and they'll treat you right, and they're going to give you an honest price that includes delivery, setup, and haul away. Why don't you find out more about this company by going to their website, dtmccalls.com. It is 37 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And since it is a Friday, that means that it's time for a little thing we like to call Phone Your Farb Friday. Here is the number. You know it, 615-737-9986. Again, 615-737-WWTN. And we would love to have you participate in this thing we call Phone Your Farb Friday. You can talk about what's on your mind. I mean, maybe you got to be in your bonnet. Maybe you have a burr in your saddle. Maybe you have a bug in a place where I really hope you never, ever, ever find a bug. But one way or the other. You just get on the phone and tell us what's on your mind. I mean, this is your opportunity to climb up on our 100,000 watt soapbox and express yourself. Now, look, a lot of people are on the highways and the byways, getting out of town for a 3-day weekend. So, we got a lot of empty room here. Good time for a first-time caller. So what's on your mind? What's bugging you? Maybe you want to play Stump the Chump or anything, whatever you got. 615-737-9986. All right, I'm pulling my screen forward, and the calls are still coming in. Let's go to Rishi in Murfreesboro. Rishi, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Brian, I appreciate your show, but I think a lot of time is wasted on infighting between Democrats and Republicans, but nothing is done for real problem people are facing. I'll give you 3 of them, actually. One is the inflation is a real major problem for people on the fixed income, but nothing is being done. Second, I feel like Social Security, we are running to the point that they'll run out of Social Security fund by 2033, actually. So the Congress has been there since January. They've not done anything for Social Security or balanced budget. I mean, they say something but don't do something. And third is affordable health care. I feel like a lot of elderly people have to choose between food and medicine. And I just feel like if we could get affordable health care to seniors and other people, I think there'll be a real issue or real problem being solved.
Yeah, you're looking at some deep issues there. So how do you feel like you can make that better through your vote?
I feel like both sides of aisle, they take donation from big company, big insurance people, if they don't do a thing. I mean, as long as we have lobbyists and people running big mega dinner for donation, etc., common people are forgot. I mean, So
well, I will say this, Rishi. I'm gonna disagree with you just a little bit, because I think when people are united, when people get their back up, then I will tell you that my experience is that people in elected positions do pay attention, because there's one thing that they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose their job. They care deeply about remaining in this job and having the power that comes with the job. And so I have found that people who, if they are confronted by an overwhelming number of people who are calling them and saying, "I'm irritated about this, you guys better get busy," they get busy. It does work. But you're right. There are also voices on the other side as well. Thank you for the call, Rishi. Greatly appreciate it. Pedro in Joelton. Pedro, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Pedro?
Well, good afternoon. I wanted to say that the mummy in Kentucky the handlers will not let him quit or because they're going to lose their jobs. And the other point is that
hold it. I got to stop you for a second. Hold on. You're talking about Mitch McConnell, right?
That is correct, my friend.
All right, so in case people don't know, this is what happened. This is the other day in Covington, Kentucky. He was asked a question about, will you run for re-election, and he had a moment.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
And then he just locked up, and this is the second time it's happened. All right, so go ahead now that people know what you're talking about. What is your thought about Mitch McConnell?
Well, I believe his handlers will not let him step down because, first of all, they'll lose their jobs, and they're the ones that are making policy, not him. and he was the one that was elected by the people in Kentucky, not his handlers or his staff.
And so you think it's time for him to step down?
Oh, most definitely.
All right, Pedro, thank you so much. I think there are many people who think, maybe it's time for some of these people that have been in positions of power for so long to let some fresh blood in. All right, there you go. Frank in Lancaster. Frank, you're on with Brian on the Drive. Is it Lancaster or Lancaster? Because it depends on what part of the country you're from, I think.
Yeah, if you're from out here, they call it Lancaster.
Okay, Lancaster. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I had heard these things on what they're calling the silent depression, and I'm wondering what kind of research or information you've got on the comparison between our economy now and our economy in the 1930s.
Well, that's a good question. I haven't done a comparison of that. I know that the jobless rate went up today from 3.5 to 3.8%, and there are about 6.37 million people out of work. And then I know that you also have the president of the United States who is out there saying, well, don't worry, because Bidenomics is working. Here's what he said. I got it right here. Let me pull this up. This is good stuff. I mean, I don't know how in the world he can look himself in the mirror and say this stuff, but here's what he said.
The Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal, have heard me say it before, started calling my plan Bidenomics. It's about investing in America and investing in Americans. It's working.
Well, nobody else seems to think it's working. Do you think it's working, Frank?
No, sir. I'm wondering how our wages aren't a political issue. Our wages in comparison to the cost of living I've been a professional for 25 years, and it has almost went down the entire time.
Yep, I'm telling you, it's you compare where we were economically when Trump was in office and follow up and see where we were since Biden took office. He's driven it into the dirt, just absolutely driven it into the dirt. And Bidenomics are not working. And how they, can look you straight in the eye and tell you it's working. It's working. Don't worry. There's nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, because it's working.
It's working.
Yeah, it's just no matter what, don't let those statistics change your mind about it. Just listen to me, old Lunch Bucket Joe, and I'll tell you, it's working.
It's working.
It's working. Well, it's not working, and we all know it's not working. And how they can look you straight in the eye and lie about it really bothers me. Frank, thanks for the call. Dave on the road. Dave, you're up next on the Drive. What do you say, Dave?
Hey, first-time caller. Like you said, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to comment about the issue on the marijuana. I wouldn't vote for Biden no matter what he did. I think Republicans should take a consideration of changing the rules some, mainly because, not for votes, but because of how it became illegal in, I think, 1937 through propaganda and lobbyists. And also that, no, I don't believe there's any documented cases where anyone's ever overdosed on it. Well, there has been with alcohol, which I understand that's mankind's preferred drug. And then the fact that if we legalize it, it's going to become a moral argument before it's over. I mean, you wouldn't want to think your Sunday school teacher used marijuana. It's a moral argument before it's done.
Well, you know what? People may not be aware, but there's a movement, we talked about it earlier, to take it from being a Schedule I drug down to a Schedule III drug, which is, one step short of saying, let's just legalize it. And the Biden administration feels like that's a winning issue for them. So, the question is, should Republicans get on board? Because they've never been willing to do that. But I'm sort of anti-marijuana. I always have been. I just don't think that it's, especially the smokable weed derivative. If you want to take something out of marijuana and it has some medical benefits, that's a different conversation. Let's have that conversation. But, I think, the Democrats are definitely going to use it as an election year issue. All right. Okay. I got to go, Don. I want to get a couple other people in here. Thank you very much. Tyler in Spring Hill, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say? Tyler going once? Are you there? Yeah,
sir.
Tyler, I'm talking to you, buddy. You got to be ready. You got to be right there, Johnny, on the spot.
I'm ready now. I apologize.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Anyway, so hey, I went to Kansas City this week for a work trip, and I got off the airport. In the airport, it was all gender bathrooms, and it got me thinking again. My daughter goes to Williamson County schools here, and I've got other friends that their kids are in Spring Hill, and it sounds like whatever gender you want to be, you can go into whichever bathroom you can be. So my question is, what are the current laws, and what do we do about it? I don't know in Tennessee what's going on, but, there's guys going to the girls' bathrooms. My daughter's in ninth grade, and just curious what you know about it. And it's just, I guess it's coming this way.
Well, I don't like it, and I don't think it's right. I think that I don't know what the law currently says in the state of Tennessee. Honestly, that's something that I don't want to try to spitball without having some more information. But I'll look into it for you, Tyler, and it may be the topic of a really good conversation going forward. Thank you very much. Don in Murfreesboro, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Don?
Don from Murfreesboro?
Yep, that's you, buddy.
All right, Don, I got a question and a comment. Question, you ever got your drink machine fixed?
Well, you're talking about my margarita machine. Yeah, it's working pretty well. Why do you ask?
I just want to know if you're going to enjoy it this weekend.
Well, no, I'm not. I've got other plans for the weekend that involve some travel, but the margarita machine has already been sort of packed up and ready for storage. I think, it's one of those things that you want to bring out when you got a party or something like that. But the rest of the time, it's something you just sort of have to find a place to store. I really love it, though. It's really quite an amazing machine, and it just worked far better than I ever imagined. But,
one more thing on the mask you was talking about. I had a medical condition. I told people I had halitosis, and they never bothered me.
Thank you for that, Don. It is. We're going to call that the end of the segment. Thank you very much. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. All right, some exciting news. Many of you have lived here a long time. You know about Eurofix. You know they've been in Middle Tennessee for some 24 years, a place to get your European car repairs taken care of. I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business that takes off. And so the folks at Eurofix are very proud to announce a 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road. It's directly across the street from the Dairy Queen. In fact, I drove by it yesterday. It is really a lovely, shiny new building. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic who started in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer grow to 5 locations where you repair thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
Donald Trump has pled not guilty to the charges in Fulton County, Georgia. Online scams, the latest on Maui after the wildfires, and the Tennessee State Fair has a petition to move the date. Those stories and more at 6 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 56 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Listen, again, a reminder, a programming note that we will not be here with a live program on Monday because that is Labor Day. Now, we'll get the best of the drive, and then we'll be back in on Tuesday, where we will pick it up and just run with it. And it's going to be, hope you have a great holiday. In the meantime, we'll be back in just a few moments with another hour of the drive. Stay right where you are. So how are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management, well, they understand it can be a little bit scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Now, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call to this number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, you don't have anything to lose except for your worry. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303, and at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. All the T's have been crossed, all the I's have been dotted. Again, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your retirement stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories, the weekend forecast, latest traffic report on the way. Former President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 13 counts in Fulton County, Georgia, tied to what District Attorney Fani Willis alleges was a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 election in that state. Jay O'Brien tells us at least one other defendant is trying to get his case moved.
Former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Willis are still waiting on a federal judge to decide whether or not his case should be tried in federal court, where the jury pool is expected to be more favorable. Meadows memorably set up this call for Trump with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
But in court filings Thursday, the former chief of staff argued his case should be moved if even some of the actions he's charged with were part of his official duties as White House chief of staff.
And a warning today from the country's most populated state for those who want to give money for the wildfire relief efforts on Maui. Alex Stone has details and some tips to protect yourself.
California's Attorney General is out with a warning that criminals are using the Maui wildfires to steal money through fake charities and online crowdfunding. The AG says some attempts to raise money are even well-intentioned, but online crowdfunding pages that are formed quickly may lack the experience or staff needed to appropriately deal with the funds that come in. Before donating any money for the wildfire relief, the state says check the registration status to make sure it's a real charity. Give to known organizations you trust. Don't trust or be pressured by telemarketers who contact you, and understand the difference between tax-exempt and tax-deductible.
In Tennessee, Fox 17 says that a petition was signed by thousands trying to get the Wilson County, Tennessee State Fair moved later in the year when temperatures get a bit cooler, like autumn. Organizers say due to contracts, it would be at least another 10 years until the fair could decide to change seasons. And in its 44-year history, the fair claims they've only been rained out 3 nights. Nearly 2,300 people have signed the petition so far. And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 5 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for one more hour before we take a nice long 3-day weekend. Hope that you have plans to spend some time with family and friends and kick back a little bit and enjoy the last unofficial day of the summer season. It's not the official, but you can't wear white after Labor Day.
Says who, though? Who made that rule?
And then there's this other thing about cowboy hats. I mean, when do you go into your felt cowboy hat and put away the straw cowboy hat?
Well, first you have to have a cowboy hat, which
rules
me out. I do not. I'm sure you do.
I have both, and it's something that I struggle with. When is the right time to put the straw hat away? I would say maybe Labor Day.
Yeah, I guess you couldn't go wrong there.
All you kickers out there, if you got an opinion about this, just text it to Chris, and Chris will pass it on to me. We deal in the deep issues of the day most of the time, not this time. I really don't know when you're supposed to do it. Now, it's not that I wear a cowboy hat every day. You can't come on the radio and wear a cowboy hat.
Yeah, headphones are an
headphones.
issue.
It doesn't work at all. And so, although I noticed, I was watching this weekend, or maybe last weekend, they were the people who were cowboys covering the rodeo, the bull riding competition. They slip their headphones back down behind the brim, but it always looked like their headphones were about to come off.
Yeah, they're unstable. I think Don Imus used to wear a cowboy hat sometimes when he would do
Well,
his
you're
radio
right. I
show.
forgot about that. He did.
And I think he did the same thing. He just kind of had them hanging
back there on the back.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with that either.
No, so I almost always either don't wear a cap or I wear a cap. I can't wear the cowboy hat, although I look really good in a cowboy hat. I mean, honestly, can I just be honest? I mean, honestly, if you saw me walk in the door, 6'4", I got my ostrich boots on, and I'm wearing a cowboy hat. I mean, that would make an impression on you, wouldn't you say?
It would leave some sort of impression for sure.
Where did that cowboy come from? Anyway.
And where'd they find an ostrich big enough to make those boots?
Well, there's a good question there. Took maybe a couple of ostrich to make those boots. All right. I do have a bunch of stories, a lot of different things that, as we get down to the last hour of the week, there's some things that I think are important that I just haven't been able to get across the goal line, and I saved them up for this last hour. Because I think there's some things here that I want to know that none of these things, may be related one to the other, but that's okay. From WKRN, a 10-month-long investigation has led to the arrest of someone that authorities call a major drug trafficker. Metro Nashville Police Department said the Murfreesboro Police Department originally began the investigation, which later involved the Metro Nashville Police Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Brandon Osteen, 36 years old, arrested Thursday after police searched his Broadway apartment and found, you ready for this? 37 pounds of fentanyl-laced cocaine, guns, shoeboxes containing about $400,000 in cash, plastic baggies, kilogram presses, and vacuum sealers. Police say Osteen is a convicted drug felon on parole who registered with Metro Police as an ex-con in October of 22. He's charged with possession of fentanyl-laced cocaine for resale, gun possession by a convicted felon, possession of drug paraphernalia, currently being held on $1 million bond. And according to police, the investigation continues involving the Metro Nashville Police Department, the Murfreesboro Police Department, the TBI, and the Cheatham County Sheriff's Office. All still working on this. Will there be another shoe to drop? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I like it when we get cooperation, when they get a good break. So many times we have criticism of our police. We ought to give them a good attaboy when they get something right. And taking 37 pounds of fentanyl-laced cocaine and guns, off the street and getting a guy who's obviously, according to the police, doing things that he should not have been doing. I'm in favor of it, and I want to applaud the police. Applaud the police for doing this. Great job, guys. Good work. We had a jobs report today that really wasn't all that good. The labor market looks like it's finally buckling under the strain of one of the most intense interest rate tightening cycles in decades, according to thehill.com. That despite a prolonged strength and relative insensitivity to the job market to interest rates that left many economists confused. Well, today, the unemployment rate climbed from 3.5% in July to 3.8% in August. There are about 6.37 million people, 6.4 million people out of work. According to calculations, most Americans work in the service sector. And so what does that mean? Well, here's what it means. It means, number one, although it sounds like bad news when more people are looking for jobs, it's one of those things with, where the economy, for the economy writ large, it may not be a bad thing. I mean, honestly, this is just that weird thing about economics, that sometimes you have to hurt the economy and you have to hurt people in order to bring the economy back in line. So what are they doing? Well, they feel like, the market has been absorbing everybody they can possibly find and keeping people employed. That's important. But the other side of it is that you have a situation where because now it appears that fewer people are working, the economy is cooling. And with the economy cooling, it means that the Fed might not raise interest rates any higher. I mean, what do we want? We want inflation to go down, and we want even if the interest rates have to go up for a while, to force that. The thinking is that because now the jobs information seems to show that not as many people are working, perhaps the Fed will not be raising interest rates again. I mean, we're at 7 right now, I think, if you're getting a 30-year mortgage. That's pretty high. So although the jobs report is bad, it may mean that we get a break on interest rates, which is good. It's weird. You really have to hurt the economy in order to make it better. What a weird thing that is. Saudi crude oil exports fell sharply in August as the kingdom leads an effort by OPEC alliance to curb production and bolster oil prices. What does that mean for you and me? It means more higher prices at the gas pump. And higher prices at the gas pump means what? Well, inflation. Everything that requires energy is going to cost more. So if it's delivered by a truck or a train or shipped across the ocean in a ship, all those things start to go up as the price of oil and gas go up. And OPEC, once again, calling the shots. There was a time where we didn't care about OPEC. It wasn't that dadgum long ago either. We didn't give a rat's you-know-what about OPEC because we were exporting oil. We had so much of it. We need to, release the hounds in the energy sector. Let them do what they do, but not in the Biden world. No, they're more all they care about is pushing, electric cars down your throat, even if you don't want them. So the fact that OPEC and Saudi Arabia are now slashing production means that the cost of oil and gasoline goes up. That hurts inflation. So that's something to watch in the days ahead. Again, inflation is the thing you're trying to kill, and it seems like the Saudis and OPEC are trying to stick it to us a little bit. New York City is using drones. This is unbelievable. I always say that you have no expectation of privacy beyond the confines of your own home. But that's not true in New York City. New York City will be using drones to monitor large outdoor gatherings over the Labor Day weekend. If a caller states there's a large crowd in a backyard, we're going to be utilizing our assets to go up and check on the party. What? Assistant New York Police Department Commissioner Kaz Daughtry said at a press conference. They're going to send up their drones to spy on you in your backyard, and if they think that you've got something going on there that you shouldn't be, who in the hell are they to tell me what I can do in my own backyard? I mean, what do they think they are? The Watertown Police Department? Come on. New York City Mayor Eric Adams expressed interest in using drone technology in his city's policing during a visit to Israel last week. I've been leaning into how we could appropriate the use of drones. They've had great technology on using drones for early detection. The mayor announced new rules for drone usage in the city last month, including a permitting process and guidelines for the takeoff and landing of unpiloted craft. I think almost every police department now has a drone. And there are times, I think, where drones, I haven't done it in a while, but I used to be fascinated by drones. I had a couple. I played with them. I thought they were fun. I looked at it mostly as a flying camera that I would want to do creative things with. And I was just trying to learn, what this new technology. Think about it for a moment. From the media standpoint, you used to spend millions of dollars in a newsroom to put a helicopter up. You got to talk about your fuel, your pilot. You got to have a place to put the aircraft, and the insurance is through the roof. And I happen to know all this because of being in local newsrooms all these years. And so, now you replace all of that with something that costs you maybe $1,000 if you buy a good one. And you can get the same effect out of it. I've always thought, okay, there's a major breaking story and you've got a tanker that's on fire or something like that. Great use of the drone. You go into Maui and all of those pictures that we're seeing out of Maui, great use of the drone. And if you're looking for a lost person, that's a great use of the drone. All of these things are areas where you can really use it and be proud that you're using it and use it as a responsible way. But to start peeking over people's back fence to find out what they're doing in their backyard is outrageous. By the way, I know people say this all the time. I just tell you something I learned when I was flying drones, and I studied a lot about it. Don't shoot one. You know what happens if you shoot one? It's a registered aircraft with the FAA. It becomes a federal investigation.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, everybody said, well, I'll just shoot that drone. If he comes peeking over my backyard, I'll just shoot it down. Telling you, it's a problem. But I have a real problem with using it as something to spy on people who are just having a party in their backyard. I mean, come on. They're not horrible things, but they can be used in a horrible way. And here's an example of it. That somebody thinks that this is absolutely okay. You have no expectation of privacy on a public street. But don't you have an expectation of privacy on your own property if you're not causing a disturbance that causes the neighbors? I mean, there are limits to everything. You can't make a bunch of noise that, disturbs your neighbors. There are limits to that kind of thing. But, that doesn't give you the right to fly a drone over to peek over and see, what are you doing in that backyard? There might be something going on there that I think is illegal. And what is your premise? I mean, how do you know there's something illegal going on? Well, we don't know. Do you have a warrant? That's what I would say. Do you have a warrant to fly that thing and peek over on my back fence? Because otherwise, I don't think you should be doing that. Honestly, technology, almost every time we get some kind of amazing technology, there are people who want to push it in the wrong direction. There's nothing wrong with using it as a news gathering tool. There's nothing wrong with using it to save human lives when someone's lost. There's nothing wrong in any of those things. But to use it just because you think something might be going on in somebody's backyard, that's a little bit outrageous, way beyond the pale. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about Eversealing. First, I need to tell you what it is. It's a sealant for your exterior wood and concrete. It actually has been around for ages, being used in industrial applications mostly. And the folks at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. The process starts with a deep cleaning all the way through and make your wood or concrete look as good as it possibly can look. And then their patented sealant will absorb all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete to prevent further deterioration. And this is the amazing part, for the next 30 to 50 years. Wow. Now, listen, think about how much money you'll save. Most people seal their deck once a year or once every other year. If you're lucky, maybe you don't have to do it every year. But most people do it about once a year, I think. So think about how much money you save if you don't have to do that for 5 years. For 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years, for 50 years. You just enjoy your deck. Forget about it. Do it once and be done. Sound like something you're interested in knowing more about? Why don't you reach out to the folks over at Everseal and see what they can do for you? 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more by going to the website ever-seal.com. It is 24 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Chris Webber, I understand, but we got some responses to our question about when do you go from a felt hat, from the straw hat in the summer to the felt hat in the fall and winter. And do we have a definitive answer?
We have answers, but no, we do not have a definitive answer. It seems like they're all kind of different. Okay. A little all over the place. So I guess that kind of tells you there really probably is no definitive answer. But I'll go through some of what we got. This is an interesting one. After your state's state fair. I don't know.
Well, we just had that.
Which
so.
That would have been, yeah. So I guess according to that, you could do it. Or, he says, or the average temperature is less than 50 degrees. Now, if you wait for that, you're going to be waiting until, late October probably, maybe even November. Let's see, after the first freeze, that was another answer.
No, that's not a bad solution right there.
Day after Labor Day is another answer. 70 degrees or below. I'm assuming that's like a high, like a daytime high temperature.
Right.
And then we had another one that said that you can wear the straw hat just pending the temperature, outside temperature.
Just make a judgment call based on what the forecast says.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what most people do.
So
but there ought to be a rule of guidance. I mean, us poor, our poor cowboys, we don't know these things. We need guidance. We're not real hip on all the fashion. They have a rule for not wearing white after Labor Day. Why can't somebody come up with a rule for when we're supposed to change over our cowboy hats?
Let's see. I just did a quick Google search. Fashion rules to wear straw from May to Labor Day and felt Labor Day until May. So I guess it's kind of the same.
It's the same
rule of
as
thumb.
wearing white.
That's what it's looking like. But, it's easy to say that. It's just kind of like you saying that, Labor Day is the unofficial end of summer. But if you live in a climate like we live in, or even further south where it's warmer longer, it kind of changes things a little bit. It's not really the end of summer. It may be end of the meteorological summer.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. But
I know.
Anyway.
And then the question is, when is somebody all hat and no cattle? That's another question. I mean, a lot of people who wear cowboy hats aren't truly cowboys, and that's me. But I mean, I have some right to claim it, given that I grew up in West Texas.
Yeah, I think you come a little closer than
culturally. It's okay, right?
Go take a walk down Broadway, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands a night.
That's right.
Of cowboy hats on. You can still smell them. They just walked out of the store with them.
They just got them steamed up and ready to go. Yeah. And Texas, they have a saying about somebody who wears a cowboy hat and puts on fancy boots. Like me probably. That boy, he's all hat and no cattle. and what that means is, he may wear the hat, but he doesn't walk the walk. He doesn't really know what it is to go out there and wrangle up a bunch of cows.
That's why I'm not going to wear one.
Yeah, well, I think you would look good in one. I mean, you got that beard. I
don't think I got the head for it. I did buy it wasn't a cowboy hat, but it was kind of like an Indiana Jones style. It was a leather hat. I was a teenager.
Dun, 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 dun,
and
dun, dun, dun,
I just didn't feel like I could pull it off. It just didn't do anything for me.
Didn't do anything for you, huh?
Yeah. I don't wear caps much either, though. This is a rare thing for me.
I'm going to give you my personal opinion here, and actually, I don't know that I look real good in a cowboy hat. It depends on what else you're wearing that day. But, I mean, I think that the people who look best in a cowboy hat are people who have a very strong jaw.
Okay.
If you have a really strong jaw, you can carry off a cowboy hat pretty easily. If you don't, if you have a weakened or a recessed jaw, you really should not wear a cowboy hat. Because then, it doesn't look good.
I could see that, yeah. Maybe I could pull it off then. I got the jaw. Nice.
Yeah. I think you look good in it. I think you look good in it. Now, the question is, you got to own it when you wear it.
Yeah.
You can't be subconsciously, embarrassed by it.
Well, and
you got to put it on and own it.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's going to clash with my wardrobe. It wouldn't look good with the shorts and the T-shirt and the flip-flops.
Well, right now, you got a Georgia Bulldogs T-shirt on.
Yeah.
And you're wearing a pair of jeans, right? Or, I don't know. Are you in shorts?
Yeah.
You're in shorts today. Okay. Well, no. Never wear a cowboy
can't-
hat with shorts. No,
Yeah.
you can't do that. But if you had jeans on and in that Georgia, you could carry that off.
You could. All right. I'll look into it.
So how big is your head?
It's pretty big. It's a sizable nog. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't measured it lately, but
I don't know either. I just go over to the cowboy store and keep trying them on until I find one that fits.
Is that what you do? You just. I figured they would custom size each one.
You would think
your
that
head.
probably that they wouldn't allow you to do that, but that's what I did. I just went into them and said, let me just keep trying one on until I find one that fits.
Well, I guess that's what I did with the ball cap. I just went in there and grabbed one, and this is a fitted.
But what
cap,
you don't know is if the last person who did that has cooties or something. I mean, come on.
I don't want to think about that.
All right, enough. 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. All right, Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you know how much it costs before it's delivered. They have smart care plans that start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, you will have something that save your family maybe hundreds of dollars. Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. No long wait times or crowded wait rooms, and they treat naturally wherever it's possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. They want you to know that they are the place to come for COVID testing and treatment. They got all kinds of options that'll help you out, especially if you catch it early. And seasonal allergies are here. Grace Point provides allergy testing and treatment so you can enjoy the great outdoors. All you got to do is go to Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868, to schedule a visit. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. We got about, a little over 22 minutes to go before we then hand it off to the news, and then the news hands it off to Mark Levin. And you definitely want to hang around and see what's on Mark's mind tonight. We're doing a bunch of stories. This is what we typically do late on a Friday, about stories that I think are pretty good that we need to get across the goal line. Not many of them relate one to the other, but I think these are great stories. And so I think you will too. Listen up. Here we go. A large percentage of active shooter incidents are thwarted by armed citizens who don't even fire their weapons. But those cases are no longer counted under President Joe Biden's pro-gun control policies. According to a just-released data from the Crime Prevention Research Center, 41% of active shooting incidents were stopped by armed civilians, 41%. But if you look at the statistics and you understand what they really are, outside of the so-called gun-free zones, which bar legal carrying of firearms, over 63% of active shooting cases were ended by an armed civilian. This is according to new data from John Lott, the former Justice Department senior advisor for research and statistics. His latest challenge, undercounting and biased government records on shootings and backup efforts by Second Amendment and police groups to encourage people to carry firearms. Lott continually updates his data to include all the cases, including those that the government overlooks or misclassifies. He holds them honest. He holds their feet to the fire, and I love that about John. His information is especially critical since the Biden administration stopped counting defensive actions by civilians. They want you to think that there is no value in a civilian carrying a gun. Now, John Lott looks at the numbers and said, okay, well, there's some places where civilians can't carry guns, the so-called gun-free zones. But if you take that out, I mean, there's no way a civilian can have an impact if there's a rule that says you can't have a gun. But if outside of that, then 63% of active shooter cases are ended by an armed civilian. Sometimes, and most of the time, without ever actually firing the weapon. Just the fact that you have one is enough. Why are the data being corrupted by the Biden administration? I don't know. In 440 cases that have been cited between 2014 and 2022, 157 of those shootings were stopped by an armed civilian. But the FBI cited fewer cases, 302. Wow. I mean, they don't want to tell you the truth. I mean, the dadgum FBI, they don't want to, handle things in an upfront and honest way anymore. It really is getting ridiculous to the point where, can you trust anything that comes from the Department of Justice or the FBI? And why are they monkeying around with the numbers? John Lott has it right, and they have it wrong. And I'll just tell you what I like to say is every time an issue about should civilians have guns, I just want to bring you this thing that cops, that the rank and file cops on the street will tell you. When seconds count, remember the police are minutes away. Honestly, they are, and no matter how good they are, they're still minutes away. I always remember what my friend back in D.C. said, and he was a very liberal guy. I mean, there was nothing that we agreed on. But one time I said something about, Second Amendment. He said, I'm a very strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I said, why? Nobody in liberal world seems to be, willing to say that. Why are you willing to say that? Got a very good reason. He said, I never want to be in a situation where it's all them and no me. I agree. Police, no matter how good they are going to be minutes away. And what you need to understand is in major metropolitan areas where the police have been sort of downgraded and deteriorated, allowed to deteriorate, the departments have, in the name of, some of this woke policies that are coming along. This, we're not going to fund the police, let's defund the police. Well, there are fewer officers. The fewer officers there are on the street right now, the longer it takes for them to respond because there aren't as many of them. So all I would say is if the defund the police measures continue to go forward, I think more and more people are going to be moving over and doing what I do. Again, not looking for trouble, but I'll finish it if it starts. Okay? The President of the United States wants to reschedule marijuana. And what this means is right now it's a Category 1 drug. And now there's some talk about the administration changing it to a Category 3. The next step would then be to just take it off the list completely and make it legal. So is this an incremental move? I think so. It's also a political move because the Biden administration has done the numbers on this, and they come to the conclusion that a lot of people want to see marijuana legalized, and it's a winning item for them. So they're gonna go forward with that. Pew Research Center conducted a poll last year, found that 88% of respondents support legalizing marijuana for medicinal use. 59% support full legalization. Fully, 73% of Democrats support full legalization, 45% of Republicans. So the Democrats are very much leading on this issue, but still 45% of Republicans say They'd be fine if pot were decriminalized. What's going to happen with the 2024 election? Very quickly, I'm going to give you my assessment on this. President Biden has been stumbling and bumbling, and his low approval ratings have Democrat Party officials privately wringing their hands about the 2024 presidential race, but predictions that he will drop out of the contest are becoming increasingly far-fetched as his campaign starts to gear up. Still, political watchers are speculating. This, according to Susan Faricio at the Washington Times. Fundraisers and former aides have anonymously complained that the Biden campaign is not ramping up quickly enough and will not be ready to take on likely Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Mr. Biden's public gaffes and his physical stumbles on camera have also raised alarm that he's too old for the rigors of a presidential campaign, let alone another full term. At the end of his last year in office, he would be 86. And I think that tells you something. By the time he got reelected, he'd be 82. And this is an old 82. This is not a young 82. So what would happen? I love this thing from Fox Business Network reporter Charlie Gasparino. He says even Wall Street advisors are gaming out scenarios that substitute Mr. Biden on the 2024 ticket for Gavin Newsom or Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, bypassing the unpopular Vice President Kamala Harris. Mr. Biden would drop out after winning the nomination, and he said he hears this all the time. It's making the rounds in Wall Street. You hear it in private dinners with top execs, and I'm privy to that. He said increasingly in research reports floating around among financial advisors, they want somebody else, and they're looking for a scenario where this might happen. And I'll tell you, I don't know anything about how it's going to happen, but I can tell you this, and I don't know who's going to replace him, but I just feel pretty certain about this one thing. It keeps ringing back to me. Democrats are going to look at this guy, and they don't want to take a chance. And he's very weak. And if something were to happen, God forbid, we would be talking about President Kamala Harris. Democrats know that's not a winning solution, so they're looking around. I don't think it would be the one that you hear about all the time is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama, she's going to be it. It's all a big game to give it to Michelle Obama at the end. I can tell you right now, Michelle Obama doesn't want it. I believe anybody who truly knows Michelle Obama knows that she hated every single minute that she was in the White House. She hated it. She felt like she was confining. And she, by the way, most people don't know how much she got out when she was First Lady. She was out there on the Potomac River kayaking a lot. She would leave anytime she could get out, she would go. She hated it. And anybody who said otherwise really didn't have an understanding of what was going on behind the scenes. It won't be Kamala Harris. I'm pretty sure of that. Who it's going to be, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Joe Biden. On the other hand, Trump's numbers look really strong. He's way ahead of everybody else. I've gone through the numbers earlier, but he's either somewhere between 30 and 40 points ahead of everybody in every poll that you can. I haven't seen anything where he's less than 30 points. So he's going to, as it stands right now, he's going to win the nomination on the Republican side of the equation. I don't know how he could not. And you're saying, well, what about all the lawsuits? What about this? What about that? I'm saying it doesn't matter because he is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and so he is absolutely going to be the nominee on the Republican side of the equation. All right, so there you have it. Now, one final thing, I want to put this little bug in your ear and tell you this is something that we need to do. Tennessee U.S. Representative Mark Green was on the show earlier this week, has reintroduced legislation that would prohibit schools that violate their state laws regarding materials deemed harmful to children and say if you are found to have materials that are harmful for children, you cannot have federal education funding. Green's No Obscene Teaching in Our Schools Act, also known Not in Our Schools Act, was recently introduced in the 117th Congress. However, it didn't get past the committee stage. My bill respects federalism. States should have the power to determine what curriculum is appropriate for their students without the federal government using education funding to get around those decisions. Green's filing of the bill comes 2 weeks after he sent a letter to the Clarksville-Montgomery school system concerning a seminar promoting staff about using DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to connect with students. So he has reintroduced this piece of legislation and would like to make this a federal law. I like the idea. I hope he can get some support for it. I hope that it gets beyond the committee stage this time. I hope it gets a vote, at least in the House. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's the time of year where, just before you head into the fall and winter, maybe you want to put a coat of paint on your house. Don't do it. Don't put paint on your house. I mean, here's the thing about paint. It'll look good for a little while, but eventually paint does what paint does. It starts to crack, it starts to chip, it starts to peel. But if you called the folks at Rhino Shield of Nashville, you wouldn't have to think about painting your house for 25 years, a full quarter century. Rhino Shield is not paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. It's infused with special 3M ingredients, millions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. That's why they offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks of Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation. Don't take my word for it. Amanda said, my home turned out beautifully. Joan said, the work was outstanding. They left a great coating on the house. And my friend, the Garretts, they were so pleased with what happened with their 100-year-old farmhouse and the way it was done by the folks over at Rhino Shield, that they've got a couple of other projects that are just getting lined up now. They want more of this about what the folks at Rhino Shield do. Sound like something you'd be interested in? Give Clay Morris a call. Here's the number, 615-474-1729. And, of course, you can learn more by just going to their website, rhinoshieldnashville.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your 1-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.